Hello, friends. Welcome to the February History News. And I see quite a few of you are watching vertically through your phones. As you can see, I'm in front of a rather gorgeous location. Please do feel free to guess where you are finding me in the comments too. Let's say hello to some people. I'm going to try, first of all, I'm going to try doing the show first, and then I'm going to put the comments on stage when we go into the chat. So, hello, Lizzie. Thank you for joining. Scarlett, welcome. Thanks for coming down. Hello, Stuart. Hello, Steve. Steve sent me a bunch of incredible photographs in emails, and I am thoroughly jealous of everything you saw. The Vasa looks incredible. Is it pronounced Vasa? I believe so. I really want to go over and see that. And also the cog looks amazing too. Thank you so much. And he also shared some photos of an exhibition that we're talking about at the end of today's live. So thank you so much for that, Steve. Hi, Kiwi. Thank you for coming down. Oh, dear. Leona, as I say to my children, let's not make an A&E choice. I hope that you are going to get seen quickly and that it's not too serious. And I'm sure we're all thinking of you. That's nasty. Head injuries are, they bleed a lot, don't they? Hello, Clue. Wavy hand to you too. Leona, yes, I am keeping well. It was half term here, so there was some slightly feral times with the children. And of course, I'm not sure if you follow along to the newsletter, you may have seen we did get a puppy. So I've doubled down on the feral behaviour, and it's going wild in the aisles over here. Hello, Katie. Hello, Donald Duck and Shane. Hello, nice to see you. Hi, Ricky. Thank you for coming. Hello, Scarlett. Thank you. Morning Song. Hello. Tiki. Good evening. It's nighttime here too. It's 8:30. Hello, friends. Thank you so much for coming in. Scarlett, if you are watching it in portrait mode, so there are on YouTube, there are two versions of this. So if you find the one that's not portrait mode, it's because YouTube's pushing it out in portrait mode. If you go to my page, you'll be able to watch it in landscape. It's pushed it out to a bunch of people in portrait mode, because it is available in both. I'm looking at it, but I am seeing that almost everybody is here in portrait mode. In fact, I think everybody's here in portrait mode. I think YouTube wants you to watch it in portrait mode, but it is available in landscape mode. I'm just not quite sure why it's. Let me just hang on a second. I may have made a mistake here. Right, that's why. My fault. I did a bad thing. It's available now, because I switched the portrait mode to public, but I left the landscape one in unlisted. I've changed it now, so I'm sorry about that. I thought, why is everybody here on their phone? That's why. Well, this is because it creates two different things in my back end in YouTube. That sounds dirty. It creates two different things. So you have to upload all of the info, the description box, twice, which, all things being said, it could be easier to do. So I have two different links. Scarlett, how do you find that? Great question. If you go to Reading the Past, my page, and you go to the lives, I think it's going to pop up straight away. There we go. Wheezy's found it. I think it should pop up. It should be the one that you choose over on the live button. You re-click. Oh, there we go. Tiki, re-click the notification. Now it's landscape. Look, what I'm going to do going forward, because clearly I can't be trusted to repeat an action, is when I set these things up, I'm just going to set them to public, and hopefully that should mean they're both public. Yes, now I can see you're all here back in landscape. It tells me what you're doing. I was like, why is everybody here on their phone? It's because I can't click buttons. apparently. So there we go. But we're all here now. Thank you, friends, and thank you for your patience with my technical inabilities. I'm trying. And every time a new thing comes up, I give it a go, I experiment, and then I go, oh, I am not equipped for this. Scarlett, you're still seeing only one in its portrait. Oh, egads. Yvonne, you went to my channel and there were two choices. But beside the one that is for the portrait version, it will look like a phone. So beside the title, there's like a phone. If you go to the one you found the one, if you go to the one that's not got a phone beside it, then you'll be in landscape. I'm noticing there are over 100 of you here watching me melt down over not being able to use tech. Spectacular. I'm loving this. Kiwi, the problem is not me playing with buttons. The problem is I didn't play with the buttons when I should have played with the buttons. So, hey ho. Right, friends. While we're switching over, can anybody guess where I am? Can anybody guess? This picture was sent to us today by Jin. It's beautiful. Can we see it? I think we're all finding it. Well, YouTube needed a refresh click. I mean, also, this is 80% my fault and 20% the fact that the buttons aren't where they should be. Getting some guesses. Not Guatemala or Mexico. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds. Right, friends. Today I am going to be sat in front of a place called Ko Kay, and it is in Cambodia. And thank you as well, Jin, for sending me the pronunciation. Very, very helpful. Ko Kay, spelt K-O-H space K-E-R in Cambodia. So thank you so much for a beautiful picture. If you are joining us live, thank you so much. If you are watching on the playback, thank you too. Also, for your patience with the slight technical issues, thank you as well. Today we have got some updates, repatriation / decolonisation news. We've got loads of new news. We have got at least one ding dong, and we have got some events and exhibitions. As always, the articles are listed and numbered in the description box. Those numbers will relate to the numbers you're going to see on screen at the bottom of slides in a moment. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who has sent me articles for this month. I have also seen a few articles coming in today. If we have not covered that topic in today's session, then it will, of course, pop up in the next one. So we've got a lot to get through today. So without further ado, let's hop on into the thank yous and then from there into the main event of the news pieces. So I have to thank Elverta, Snudpuckle, Yvonne, Jessie, himself, Mr. Dr. Cat. He's been very patient. Sent me quite a few news items this week. Joseph, Steve, Beth and Jenna, Robyn, Shane, Sarah, Kelly, Katie, Stuart, Liliana and Amy. Thank you ever so much for sending me over those news items. It really does mean ever so much that you think when you're going about your lives that you spot something and you think, I'm going to send this over. Right, so without further ado, we're going to hop in the way we always do, and we're going to start with our updates. This is relating to what's going on in Sudan and the fact that the National Museum in Khartoum is already scarred by battle. There's rocket fire marks and there are explosives in the garden. We are told that inside the museum, there's evidence that the locks have been broken, the doors left wide open. When they went into a storeroom, objects are strewn all over the floor, crates open and looted, artifacts looted, broken and chipped. Employers are currently working to clean and repair the remaining items. They think at least 4,000 items are missing. The Kushite gold rooms, which housed hundreds of ornamental pieces, have been ransacked. These are necklaces and rings made entirely of gold. This museum did hold one of the most important collections of artifacts from the Kingdom of Kush. The authorities say there's evidence that at least 3 trucks loaded with artifacts left Khartoum in August 2023, and it headed west. From the early days of the fighting, the international experts have sent pleas to the RSF, warning that, quote, heritage is a red line. This is part of their culture, part of their history, and it's got nothing to do with the current conflict. The National Museum was, of course, not the only heritage site that was razed. They believe at least a dozen others across Sudan have been damaged and plundered. The total losses is estimated at being nearly $110 million. It's believed the destruction is, quote, the deliberate physical and cultural extermination of entire communities from historical heritage. The National Museum, though, part of it is once more on view in a virtual museum that went live at the start of February or January. So there are 500 museum treasures in an online recreation of the building as it was before the war. This was commissioned before the conflict started, and it was supported by the French section of the Sudanese Directorate of Antiquities. Quote, this is a great source of hope for our Sudanese colleagues. It allows them to continue researching and promoting Sudanese heritage. For one of the archaeologists, she said, the rapid support forces, the RSF, are foolish. Who do they want to rule? Those who have no history, no present. Those who have no history have no present. Heritage is our roots. They say their hearts are with their homeland. They say they want to govern the country. So why don't they protect our heritage? This stolen heritage, this civilization belongs to an entire people and even to all of humanity. Stuart suggests they're probably heading to private collections across the pond or all around the world. I would imagine. Unfortunately, particularly the things that are gold, if they have the means at hand, then the military forces, I imagine, will be melting them down and getting rid of them that way, selling them that way, simply because they will be less traceable. I worry that there's going to be quite a lot of destruction, but also, yeah, mass sales of things. Of course, there will be. Talking of loot theft, this is the aftermath of that Louvre heist. This is what the crown looks like. This is the crown of the French Empress Eugenie. This was what was crushed after it was dropped by the thieves as they ran away. They do point out that it is nearly intact. The raiders stole an estimated 88 million euros worth of jewels, but this headpiece that belonged to the wife of Napoleon III was left behind. These are the photographs that they have put out since the heist. It's missing one of its 8 golden eagles that adorned it, but it's got 56 emeralds and all but 10 of its 1,354 diamonds. It is a 19th century crown, and the hope is that it's going to be restored to its original state without the need for reconstruction. It looks bad, doesn't it? It does look rather worse for wear. And the photograph of it from 2025 shows, so that's the one at the bottom, that shows what it was supposed to look like. There were 7 other items of jewellery taken, including a diamond-studded tiara that also belonged to Eugenie, and necklaces, earrings, and brooches that still remain missing. I mean, wow, that is... I think when you see, when we see crowns, and we see them at like state occasions, the crowns, the tiaras, etc., it's very easy to look at them and go, oh, they're so heavy, which of course they are. And I think we frequently equate heaviness with sturdiness. And it can be quite jarring to see how quickly it can essentially concertina down like this. That feels quite outlandish that's allowed to happen. That an object that looks like this, that looks so in many ways robust, can just fold like that. But I mean, it's when it's using a high purity of gold, which obviously these items often do, they are more fragile. Hopefully the restoration will go well. But my goodness, what a great amount of damage has been done there. Jessie says it looks like they stepped on it. I mean, it certainly looks that could literally be what's happened from it being dropped from a height. That it's sort of crumpled like a souffle that's come out of the oven too quickly. Yvonne suggests that the Royal Jeweller Garrow could fix it. I'm sure they could. Whether or not the Louvre would allow that to happen is a different question. Leona points out that when it's restored, it's going to have a double history, which includes its ancient and modern history. And I think that's really important as well, because I think we talk about things like restoration, repatriation, all of these things. And those journeys, they are woven into the tapestry of the item. So the longer these things are stored in museums, the longer the description box has to be, because they essentially absorb the DNA, if you will, of their journey. Tiki points out that the metal can be bent back. The gems are harder to replace. Might be fake or lab-grown gems to replace those missing. I mean, the gems will be harder to replace. I think also replicating the tooling and the aging to make particularly with the diamonds, resetting the diamonds, like cutting fresh diamonds, you can do it in a potentially traditional fashion, but you're going to be using modern tools. And by doing that, you aging it up sufficiently to make it look like the rest of them without it being very visible. I think that's going to be a pretty big challenge. They have techniques for it, but yeah. Oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop the comments on stage, because I'm aware that some people do like seeing all the comments rolling across the screen as well. Okay, so more updates. We talked about this last time. The British Museum has in fact raised sufficient funds to keep this Henry Catherine of Aragon pendant. They raised £3.5 million. This is linked to Henry VIII's marriage to Catherine of Aragon. It was found by a metal detectorist in a field in Warwickshire in 2019. The director of the museum, Nicholas Cullinan, has said, quote, "The success of the campaign shows the power of history to spark the imagination, and why objects like the Tudor heart should be in a museum. The objects like the Tudor heart should be in a musician. Volunteers, please form a queue. No, in a museum." Research that was led by the British Museum has revealed that the Tudor heart pendant might have been made to celebrate the betrothal of Princess Mary, aged 2 at the time, to the 8-month-old French heir apparent. The museum is planning, I believe, to put it on permanent display. And they said that to raise the money, some 45,000 members of the public contributed to the cause. And that raised just 10% of the financing goal. They also got £1.75 million from the National Heritage Memorial Fund. They also got funding from Art Fund, the Julia Rousing Trust, the American Friends of the British Museum. Simon Thurley, who is the chairman of the National Heritage Memorial Fund, said, quote, "The Tudor heart is an extraordinary insight into the culture of Henry's court, and I'm delighted the Memorial Fund will support will enable it to go on public display. Apparently, it's going to go on display later this year with plans to tour the UK in the future." Leona, I also am very glad that it's been managed to keep it and won't be seen in a private collection. The marriage did not work out, but the jewellery piece survived. So there we go, Wheezy. And Yvonne said, that's beautiful. See, the British Museum doesn't have to hang on to Parthenon sculptures in order to have lovely displays. No, it does not. It does not. And as we know, they aren't even sure completely of what they do have, because they still don't know the exact things that went missing when that curator allegedly was sticky-fingered and selling things on eBay. They still haven't got a complete catalogue, to my knowledge, of what's gone missing. So their storerooms are full of things, so many things, they don't even know what they've got. So as I say every time, anyone who says to me, well, if we repatriate everything, there'd be nothing to put on display except for the boxes and boxes and boxes of things that are in storage. That scene in Indiana Jones with all the crates, yeah, just like that. Another update, this is on the Greek statues. There has been a discovery that they were not simply painted, but also perfumed. An archaeologist, Cecile Bois, has led this research, analysing texts and physical traces on the sculpture. And this has challenged the idea that they were purely visual artifacts. Instead, the thought is that they engage multiple senses. Pardon me. The Roman orator Cicero talks about how the statue of Artemis was anointed with perfumes. These perfumes are not merely decorative. In religious rituals, statues of gods and important figures were treated with oils and scented substances as they were objects of devotion and as acts of devotion. Roman writers like Vitruvius and Pliny the Elder documented the use of pontic wax and special oils to protect sculptures from discoloration and to give them a polished sheen. Statues were also, as well as perfume, they were adorned with textiles and jewellery in a process called cosmesis. This reinforced the idea that these sculptures, especially those that depicted gods, were treated as sacred figures. The fragrances may have faded over time, but physical traces of them do remain. So there was a 3rd century BC sculpture of Queen Berenice II discovered with beeswax on its surface, suggesting that it may have been treated with scented oils. They also believed that flowers and garlands would have added scent to the statues. So during the Roman Florilia festival, sculptures were decorated with roses and violets that would have filled the air with their scent. Scholars studied Greco-Roman sculptures for centuries, primarily for their visual appeal, focusing on craftsmanship, colour, and ornamentation. But these new findings do indicate that scent was a deliberate and essential part of their presentation. And I've talked about this many times. I am super into still these reconstructed smells and the people who are working on those, this kind of olfactory history. I think it's super interesting, and it's something that I would definitely like to learn more about. I'm trying to figure out the companies that are working on this, because I'd really love to go and do an interview with them. But it seems like they do loads of other work, so you've sort of got to catch them when they are doing the kind of museum reconstruction work, which you don't know until after they've done it. So if anybody does know anybody who's working in that field who would like to sit down and chat with me, or who'd be willing to, then please could you find a way to put us in touch. My email's listed. That would be super useful. Tiki says, I haven't heard about this eBay story. You will have heard about it. This is the curator that allegedly was stealing small objects from the thing they were working on. This was happening, was it start of last year or end of the year before? Dates and times have no meaning when you have small children. So this is a story that's been rumbling on for at least half a year, maybe more than over a year. And some of the items were found that he had allegedly put them up on eBay. So I think you will have heard about the thefts from the British Museum, potentially. It was pretty widely covered. But yes, some of the things were being sold on eBay. Jessie, that would be something really cool for a video interview, how they reconstruct ancient scents. See, that's what I'm thinking. That's kind of one of the things that I really want to see if I can do this year, is to learn about the techniques of curatorial work and looking after buildings and objects, but also how we display things in museums. And I also want to learn about heritage skills and crafts. So, for example, one thing that I've been thinking about is I would love to speak to a thatcher. Now, I know there aren't many thatchers, and I really, really hate heights. So I'm not sure how I'd actually film this, because I kind of want to learn how to do the heritage craft. And so thatcher's probably a really bad choice, because the thought of being up on a roof for any period of time makes me feel sick in my mouth. But that's the sort of thing I'd like to do. That's the sort of thing I'd like to do. Pardon me. We've got this find near Hadrian's Wall. So we've been talking about the Magna Roman fort at Hadrian's Wall for a number of weeks, months, over a year, and there's been another find because the work is still ongoing. They have found a small terracotta head dating to the 3rd century CE. This object came from inside a defensive ditch along the fort's northern edge. It measures 78 millimeters high and 67 millimeters wide. It's orange clay and it's a female face with a center part and 4 plaited strands framing each side. It's broken off beneath the nose that's removed the mouth and chin. The eyes are sat at different levels and the ears lack careful shaping. It looks like it's been roughly finished rather than polished. It's thought this might have been produced by someone who was learning rather than an experienced craft worker because of the poor symmetry and rough modelling. These freestanding sort of terracotta heads are not really a common thing in Roman Britain. Face pots, by contrast, turn up on military and civilian sites, and Magna has produced a similar head before. So it's thought then that this is something that may well have been a practice piece, if you will. Terracotta busts of women often served as votive offerings across many Roman provinces, with worshippers placing small figures in shrines, temples, or domestic spaces linked with household religion. Finds of this type remain uncommon in Britain, which adds weight to the Magna discovery. A repeated appearance of one female image in a frontier fort hints at focused devotion among soldiers, families, or traders living near the wall. The newly found head is going to go on display at the Roman Army Museum, along with other recent discoveries that we have talked about here from the Magna project. This includes shoes made of leather, a silver ring, bone hairpins, glass beads, a small Venus figurine are all going to be placed alongside this face. And this is helping to build an understanding of what daily life was like. Narcissus of the Valley says, if you had money for a house, I'd totally want a thatched roof. Yep. They do look so beautiful. They are so wonderful. When I was living down in Brighton, I used to spend quite a lot of time in and around villages on the South Downs, and there were some beautiful thatched properties. And the thatcher or thatchers, I mean, how many are there? I don't know. The thatcher in this particular village, was that the one in the South Downs? Anyway, there's a location where the thatcher does decorative sculptures, I suppose, on the top. So at the top of the roof on one, I remember there being this incredibly elaborate cockerel made of the thatching material with this amazing plumage. I think there was a peacock I saw once. I think I saw one had a cat up on the roof. Incredible work. And that's also, I think that was just one location and maybe one factory. It was like their calling card. Amazing stuff. Steve asked, have I been to Butser Iron Age Farm? I haven't. It's on my list. And I would like to go. Wheezy, how about a weaver of hedgerows? They work on the ground. Yeah. Do you know what? Maybe I'll do both, because what a great way to also face my fear, she says, writing a check that her mouth, with her mouth, that her body can't catch. But yeah, Venomous Care Bear, have I tried contacting Weald and Downland? They have amazing things. there's so like when I've thought about contacting Weald and Downland for about 65 different video ideas, because there's so much cool stuff there that I want to go and check out. So yeah, they're also on my list. Steve, you were at the Roman Army Museum. You were at the Roman Army Museum, and you can get a combined ticket for Atten the Vindolanda. Oh, that's cool. Fabulous. Jessie watched a video on shillelaghs, and now you want to reel from Ireland. You can only imagine what would happen if you watched one of my videos on thatched roofs. Well, hopefully it happens. Hopefully I get brave enough. Maybe, do you know what? Maybe there's a happy medium. Maybe there's somebody with a thatched bungalow. Little thatchy bungalow for me to maybe. Oh yes, in Devon, Thatched Cottage Central. That's so cool. And a hot 1976. You saw a thatched cottage with a wild boar on top. Do you know where it was? It in Sussex, or have I conflated them? Because now I'm saying I thought it was in Sussex, but actually, it might have been more Midlandsy. But it was a village that had all of these animals on their thatch. Can you remember where you saw it? Because I thought it was really cool. Loved it. So now we are hopping into the start of our repatriations. We've got 3 of these. So let's start with this one. The Smithsonian Ancient Art Museum has returned 3 stolen bronzes to India. The trove includes the 12th century Somaskanda, which shows Shiva with his wife. There is also the 16th century Saint Surrender with Parve, as well as a dancing Shiva known as Shiva Nataranga, which was made in around AD 990. The Smithsonian's dancing Shiva will remain on long-term loan and will be displayed alongside information about its repatriation. Quote, the return of these sculptures is the result of much proactive research. It reflects a dedication to ethical museum practices. The return attests to sharp attention to the object's origins across the museum's world in recent years, as advocates, historians, and museum professionals have called, sometimes in vain, for the repatriation of artifacts such as the Benin bronzes and the Elgin marbles held at prominent museums. That's what this article says. Here's what I'm going to say. It's interesting to me that we are talking about the Smithsonian repatriating, and this article, I think rightly, points directly to the Benin bronzes and the Elgin marbles held at prominent museums. We know which one. It's the British Museum. And what this is saying is, this return attests to the sharp attention to object origins across the museum world in recent years. Advocates, historians, and museum professionals have called for this repatriation. So they are saying the conversation has moved on, and some places are not responding. And this is going to become more and more pressing, as I said it would. I don't know when I started calling this, pretty much when I started talking about repatriation. This is going to start becoming more and more pressing. This is going to go from being, the woke agenda. I'm woke. Happily. This is going to go from being something that we can dismiss as being nothing more than like the woke agenda, social justice warrior, etc., to being an embarrassment to us on the national and international stage. Oh, sorry, back to that. AHOT thinks it was Sussex. See, that was my first. I want to say that it's near to. Oh God, it's near to like a coaching in from the 1500s. There's a really old pub, and I want to say it's near to that. Jessie says there's a website that makes custom thatched animals. Might need to crowdfund one for dog for the new puppy. Do you know what? At the end of this, if you're all very good, I'll show you a little picture of our boy. More and more places are repatriating as a matter of course. They're having the conversations. And if they're not repatriating, they are recognising ownership. It is embarrassing to be left behind. It is embarrassing. It doesn't. It should not. It's not a source of national pride. It's absolutely not. And I think that the heels being dug in came from that place originally of a sort of weird schoolyard finders keepers, losers weepers situation. And I'm concerned that now it's become. My concern is, and obviously I don't know psychologically what's going on in any of these people's minds, because I think very differently to them, clearly. I wonder if now it's become, well, since we weren't first, we can't do it at all. Because if we weren't at the cutting edge, it looks like we're being forced into it. Well, yeah, you are. One way or another, this is going to happen. One way or another. And if you leave it 10 years, or however long you think you can hold out for, if they leave it 10 years, they are going to be pariahs. And I'm not comfortable with that. And nor should anybody be who cares about heritage in this country. It's going to have so many knock-on effects. But yes, the Smithsonian is repatriating this, so we are grateful for that. And when the repatriation actually takes place, I will update, of course. Stuart saying it sounds a bit of a Clacton problem. Many things are a Clacton problem. We have got a German university returning a Maori tonga. So this is being referred to as not an artifact by an ancestor, but an ancestor. This is referred to as the case of a Hinamantiro pool, which is now being returned from the University of Tübingen to the Maori community. This is a carved wooden pillar that acts as a marker for tribal boundaries, stories, or ancestors. This one is an early carved panel depicting a standing ancestral figure. It is neither a historical artifact nor a work of art in the Western sense. It is the material presence of an ancestor, Hinamantiro, who was a high-ranking leader. This object is part of a living social order, not a testimony to a distant past. They don't quite know how it came to Europe. What is certain is that in October 1769, it was taken to Europe aboard the HMS Endeavour during James Cook's first Pacific voyage. The panel is widely regarded as one of the earliest surviving carved pu associated with the Maori, chiefly with their genealogies. And it's one of the earliest to have entered European collections. This occurred within a colonial context of profound power asymmetries. Susan says that you're having issues with the sound not being loud enough. Is anybody else having issues with the sound not being loud enough? I can turn up the mic on my end. In terms of captions, it's quite hard to get. I don't know if I can turn on captions while I'm live, but there should be captions. If it doesn't do it as I'm talking, then captions should come up on the playback. It is set to come up with captions. So if they're not showing up, then that means I don't think it happens while it's live. And I also don't know how good the captions are working while I'm live, but I have enabled captions. But Venomous Care Bear points out they don't work while you're live, because essentially it has to hear what you said. So if you watch it on the playback, there will be captions. I can try and turn it up as well. I can try and turn it up. Let me see. Where are we? Let me go into settings, audio. Just turned it up a bit. I'm sorry. Alas, the captions don't work on live. It's a bit of a pain. Sorry about that. So what is certain is that in 1937, this object enters the ethnological collection of the University of Tübingen through a lady called Emma von Luschen, who was the wife to an anthropologist, explorer, archaeologist, and ethnographer. The turning point then came in the 1990s when it was identified using a drawing from the Cook expedition that was held at the British Library. The decisive thing is that that there was a direct relationship established between the Ulti Ui, which is the people, and this item. From a legal perspective, the university is not obliged to return the object. Under German civil law, it is considered to be university property. However, political approaches to colonial collection material in Germany have shifted in recent years, what I was just talking about, and recent national guidelines encourage transparency, provenance research, dialogue with source communities, and restitution as a possible outcome. This reflects a shift away from narrow legal ownership towards acknowledging colonial power imbalances in collection histories. Where legal histories are inconclusive, as they often are in colonial contexts, restitution cannot be decided by ownership alone. For source communities to be genuine partners, their social, spiritual, and ancestral relationships with heritage must be recognised. Otherwise, restitution debates risk perpetuating the very hierarchies it seeks to dismantle. And we've got another. This is the press release this is the Smithsonian's press release dealing with the repatriation we just talked about previously. So if you want to check out the press release, I should have put them next to each other. I apologize. If you want to talk about look at the press release, then that is also linked as well. Now, friends, it's time to hop into new news. Before we do so, shall we have a little look at the puppy? I think we should. Here we go. Let's have a look at the little puppy. Look at him. This is our puppy. His name is Marlowe. And he is very sweet. He's a very sweet boy. And everybody loves him. And he is the most well-behaved creature in our house. He does as he's asked. And he does enjoy licking feet, which I find somewhat unsettling. I need to wear more socks, because he is a foot licker extraordinaire. But yes, he's doing very good listening. Fluffy Monkey M says he is a cavapoo. So part mum was a cavapoo, so her parents were a Cavalier Spaniel and a poodle, and so he's got a cavapoo mum and a poodle dad. So, but he is a cavapoo, and he's very sweet. Homologication said it's not a puppet, it's a living muppet. He's delightful, and he's little when he lays on his back and lets you tickle his belly, and his little ears stick up. He looks like a little vampire bat, because all his fur is just jet black. So he's got these little kind of buttony eyes and this buttony nose, but he's so sweet. Wheezy asks, how big will he get? I think like just sort of knee height, like bigger than your average terrier. Steve asks, is he eating the furniture yet? No, his preference is for wires. He enjoys a wire. He also doesn't need to eat the furniture because my youngest thinks they're part of the same pack. So if he's having a croissant, then Marlo needs a croissant or half a croissant too. So we have to be very careful about what we allow Dominic to eat. So he doesn't eat chocolate anyway, but that child does enjoy a varied diet. He loves a bit of black olive, and he also loves a bit of chorizo. So we've got to be quite careful because garlic isn't good for dogs. So we're watching what the little boy eats so that he doesn't feed the dog garlic or grapes or raisins or some such. Yvonne, is he hypoallergenic? Yes, they don't shed, which is one of the reasons we went for a Cavapoo, as well as their temperament and them being, famously quite good in. We live in a city. It would not be fair to have Malinois or husky or something with our lifestyle. It just wouldn't be. So this is the ideal dog for our family. They're lazy lap dogs that like cuddles, etc. But yes, one of the reasons we did is because I have lots of allergies. It's highly likely that at some point my kids will develop an allergy. So this is another massive plus point of getting a Cavapoo for us. Stuart, a mop, yes. He is very moppy and very cute, and we love him very much. Love it. So yes, that's Marlo. Anyway, let's go back, shall we? And let us move into our new news. Oh, curious guy forever. When you trim his, I'm going to be so for real with you. There is no way that I will be taking clippers or to nails or fur. This is for me. I don't cut my own hair. I don't cut my kids' hair. I would cut my own fingernails, obviously, but I would not do that to a dog. I don't feel comfortable with that. That's a groomer. That's a groomer situation. That dog goes and you pay somebody to go and do that. Because I'm too scared to do it. I'm too scared. So first up, a 430,000-year-old wooden tool is the oldest ever found. It's along with the discovery of a 500,000-year-old hammer made of bone. It indicates that our human ancestors are making tools even earlier than we first thought. These are early hominins in Europe. They were creating tools from raw materials thousands of years before Homo sapiens arrived. There are 2 new studies that indicate that we can push back the established time for such activities. The findings suggest that early humans possessed sophisticated tech skills, and these artifacts were recovered from coal mine sites, probably produced by early Neanderthals or a preceding species, Homo heidelbergensis. Homo sapiens emerged in Africa more than 300,000 years ago, and the oldest evidence of them in Europe is 210,000-year-old fossil that was unearthed in Greece. So by the time Homo sapiens established themselves in Britain, other hominins had lived there for nearly 1 million years. So this 430,000-year-old wooden stick was used by hominins for digging. They also found marks from chopping and carving on both objects, clear evidence that humans had shaped them. The digging stick was found among elephant bones. Perhaps it was used to chop and carve the meat from the carrion. One of the archaeologists involved said, "I've never tried to cut up an elephant carcass, so I don't know. I assume it's not easy, but I guess it's possible." These new studies highlight the diversity of raw materials that prehistoric people used for tool making. Flint is more common, but bone and wood were probably more valuable for our ancient ancestors. Imagine how many tools you can make from a single large bone of an elephant. A lot, I imagine. I'm seeing some calls for some videos on royal pets. So I have made some videos on royal pets. I have made some videos on hawking, the royal menagerie. No, I made a video on the royal menagerie, and I've also made a video on sort of pets at court, like lapdogs, birds in cages, monkeys, and things. I am planning to make a video on working animals used in the hunt. So like mastiffs, horses, the various kinds of horses that we use at the royal court. So that there is a series that's forming. I've got a couple of videos already, but it does need to extend out. Yes, so I've got that on the list, and that's going to hop in. Leona, in terms of royal household animals compared to today, it's very, very similar. Like in terms of our domestication, particularly like at the medieval and Tudor court, in terms of our domestication, how we treat our beast, if you will, we still do something very similar in that we kind of partition them off into lapdogs or companion animals and working dogs. So we, in the same way that we see, for example, guide dogs, guard dogs, hunt dogs, gun dogs, etc., as being something separate from your cuddly, floofy lapdog, they're doing something very, very similar. Even in terms of like the food they'd feed them, and the access they're allowed to have. So in our relationship with dogs, particularly, I don't think has changed that much. And there is genuine affection. So Henry VIII has these two dogs called Cut and Bull, who have jeweled collars that keep going missing. And whenever they're brought back, he gives out large financial rewards for whoever brings them back in because he loves them so much. But he also has, I'm sure, I know he has countless other dogs for hunting that he wouldn't have at his feet, like in the hall. They're not his pets. They're something different. I think we're quite similar in many ways with the way we view a separation of types of dog today. Our next, a genetic study. This is in a statement released by the University of Vienna, has found a rare genetic condition in the remains of a mother and daughter who were buried cuddling in the same grave more than 12,000 years ago. The burial was found in 1963 in southern Italy. The remains of a woman who stood under 5 feet tall, and there was also the remains of an adolescent girl with pronounced limb shortening, an estimated height of about 3.5 feet. The analysis showed the daughter carried 2 copies of a variant in the NPR2 gene, which confirms a diagnosis of acromesomelic dysplasia, maratotype. This is an inherited disorder characterized by short stature and shortening of the limbs. Quote, "We believe her survival would have required sustained support from her group, including help with food and mobility in a challenging environment. Rare genetic diseases are not a modern phenomenon, but have been present throughout human history." So if you want to read more about Paleolithic burials in the cave in northwest Italy, if you go to this website, you can click on Ice Age Necropolis. Venomous Care Bear, Anne Boleyn did have a lapdog that allegedly met a unfortunate end. Pourquoi, from the French pourquoi, thought to have been named such because he was thought to have had a kind of curious and sweet head tilt. And Pourquoi, I believe, had a fall out of a window, much to Anne's reported incredible distress. So yes, that did happen. 12,000-year-old scraps of elk hide might be the world's oldest known examples of sewing. These are incredible, like the plaits in them, amazing. So they have found 2 pieces of elk hide stitched together with cord. It's thought that it might have been the margin of a piece of tight-fitting clothing, a moccasin, a bag or container, or even part of a portable shelter. They can't confirm its purpose. There's a new study on it, though. What they can confirm is that it was definitely sewn. They've got cordage sewn into a hide that comes right out and goes right into another piece of hide. They also revisited troves of artifacts that were found in Oregon's Cougar Mountain Cave and Paisley Caves. These sites contained two of the largest Pleistocene perishable assemblages in the world. So that's the braided cords, the bone needles, projectile points, and wooden artifacts. Incredible. I mean, look at them. All of that kind of... The survival is amazing, I think. And they point out this is chronicling almost 12,000 years of shared knowledge. There are a few places in the world where you can look at a technological and cultural tradition and connect it over 10 or 12 millennia. The cave artifacts include items from a variety of plants, animals, and types of wood. The resourcefulness shows that these groups had a really deep, complex traditional knowledge of the ecosystem around them that let them thrive in a really difficult time and place. How did they survive this long? Well, apparently the caves are an ideal shelter because they're dry, and that, over those thousands of years, kept these artifacts dry too. So you can get this glimpse of what life was really like and what raw materials, plants, and animals were used to make things all of those many, many thousands of years ago, which is just fabulous and fascinating. Next up, I found this particularly startling. I think you will too. This is a funerary portrait from Roman Egypt. And what you've got is a male subject with, as they describe it, piercing hazel eyes and greying hair. At auction, it brought in $889,000 with fees. It is one of 900 or so known as the Fayum mummy portraits, created during the 1st and 3rd century AD and placed on the deceased mummified bodies like a mask. I think these images are incredible. I think they're incredible. It's so hyper real. I find it incredibly startling. Steve says if you go to the Petrie Museum in London, they have several mummy portraits. They're just incredible. They also have a mummy portrait of a man with curly hair that sold for $936,000, which was triple its estimate. And they point out that it does feel unusually contemporary, and I think that's what it is for me. It feels extraordinarily contemporary. They point out that this person is visibly older than the other mummy paintings. You can see the gentleman with the greying hair. We don't know if they were painted while they were dead or alive, or perhaps a mix of the two. I think they're incredible. The subjects are thought to have had political or social standing within the Roman Empire, as this is portraiture that's very much connected and favoured with those who are connected to the imperial family. The realism and naturalism is coming from a Greek classical painting tradition of which not much survives, but it originates in the Mediterranean. And because of that, a place that's incredibly humid, paintings are less likely to survive into modernity. I feel very judged by that first man. The second one feels much kinder. I wonder what the first guy did for what he is. You know, his gaze is. I can see how it feels confronting. I can, and there is a softness in the second gentleman with the curly hair and the beard. But it's for me. It's. I had to sort of do a double take, and I had to be like, is this a modern artist representation of one of these portraits? Because it just feels like it could have been painted a week ago. And yeah, aged up, sure, but it does feel like it was painted a week ago. I think they're incredible. A Roman mosaic is being able to return home after 200 years. This mosaic includes a depiction of Orpheus charming animals and birds with his music that was discovered in a Roman villa in Gloucestershire in 1811. It was held in storage in the British Museum for centuries. There are 3 fragments showing a bear, a leopard, and a boar that are now on display at the Cologne Museum in Cirencester. The museum's director, Emma Stuart, said, quote, "I am thrilled. Apart from the very brief airings, they've not been seen by the public in 200 years since they've left the county." I did toy with the idea of this being a repatriation item, that finally the British Museum is repatriating, but I didn't put it in there because it actually, I was concerned about it feeling like I was cheapening the real conversation about the museum's denial of repatriation. But this belonged in a county within the UK, and it's gone back there. These are known as the Withington fragments, and they will be going on display alongside the Orpheus mosaic. The largest of the fragment is the one that depicts the wild boar being chased by a hunting dog. It survived for at least 1800 years, if not longer, and they are very excited to have them on display at the Cologne Museum. It does look pretty cool. Sorry, I'm seeing we're having some conversation about the Ptolemaic period. Stuart asks, is it Ptolemaic? So it refers to it as Roman Egypt. So as you rightly say, Elizabeth, this is after Cleopatra's death. Next up, more Roman finds. A figurine of a cat with its paws atop a severed head is something that's been found in 2024. This was found by a metal detectorist. This is a panther with its paws on a bearded man's severed head. The object dates to between 43 and 200 CE, and it was recently shown at an event at the British Museum, along with 2 artefacts that had also been found to be treasure by the British government. As it's been designated as treasure, that means the museum, in the instance of this one, Epping Forest District Museum, to acquire it and put it on display. This piece is about 4 inches long and it's mostly 3-dimensional. The backside is hollow and is filled with lead. It's thought that this once belonged to a Roman era carriage that belonged to a high status individual. So it would essentially decorate the carriage and it would have been really shiny. And so as the carriage comes towards you, you'd know it was somebody important heading your way. And you can see in the bigger picture how detailed it is. It is a beautiful item. It's thought to have been part of a pair, likely something that would symbolize the strength and power of the Roman Empire. The panther is probably a representation, they think, of Bacchus, or a Roman name for the Greek god Dionysus. The head is thought to be a depiction of one of the empire's many enemies. The artifact turned up near Harlow, which is about 30 miles north of London. And that's because Roman carriage fittings were often melted down. So we've got here a unique blend, they say, of Romano-British design. There's the geometric patterns that were present in Britain during the Iron Age, and then this very traditional Roman victory image, which we can see. The design sets the figurines apart, but similar items have surfaced before. This cat figurine was one of 79,616 artifacts that have been discovered by members of the public, mostly metal detectorists, that were reported to the British authorities in just 2024. That's a new record. In 2023, there were 74,506 items reported, and in 2022, 53,490. So, what a hobby to have. How cool is that? The discovery of this and other artifacts, is a testament to the dedication of finders across the country. Their responsible reporting allows us to build a richer and more detailed picture of life in the past while ensuring important objects are preserved for public benefit. Absolutely. It's stories like this that are like, I'm going to get myself a metal detector. But as I said, I live in the middle of a city, so I'm not quite sure what farmer's field I'm going to find, but maybe one. Maybe one. Tiki said I would buy the cat statue for my friends that have cats. I mean, yeah, a replica. See, these are the things, when they have finds like this, I'm like, do you want to know how you could make some real cashish if you just do some copies of this in maybe in various materials and sell it in your gift shop? People want stuff like this. They want it. Particularly the jewellery. Obviously, you don't, unless somebody's prepared to pay, you don't do it in the gold and the precious gems, but you do it in something that mimics that. We have a communal garden that sits on top of a car park, so I fear that there's going to be. I'd be hard pressed to find something out there. But as Jessie says, only metal detector is a great excuse for getting out of the city. It is, but the problem with getting out of the city is that's where nature lives, and I don't. Do you know what? I am such a city girl. The quiet and stillness of the countryside makes me feel deeply unsettled. Deeply unsettled. Steve's got his drone back, so more aerial photography. Excellent. Love it. Wheezy, I'd like a replica of the Tudor heart. Yes, correct. Venomous Care Bear, are they trademarked? I don't think they can be. I don't see how that's possible they could be trademarked or copyrighted, because their creators are, it's so far out of the timeline of that. I mean, my understanding as well, even photographing them, and people trying to pass off the photograph as copyrighted through sweat of the brow, I believe that's been challenged. I think there's going to be appeals about it, but I think that notion was challenged successfully in court, that simply photographing an object or a painting does not define sweat of the brow in the way that would be able to pass on the ownership of copyright. Archaeologists think they have identified traces of a 2,000-year-old love note etched into a wall in Pompeii. They have revealed 79 new pieces of graffiti on a wall in the city's theatre district. They say some 2,000 years ago, a woman named Irato walked the streets of ancient Pompeii's theatre district. When she reached a long passageway covered with graffiti, she decided to carve a message of her own onto the wall. Irato amat, or Irato loves. The end of her message has been lost to history. Her love note is one of roughly 300 surviving inscriptions etched into the wall. When Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, volcanic ash buried Pompeii and it preserved the city. They have been excavating Pompeii since the 18th century, but now advanced imaging technologies have revealed some of these faded messages. And they've been able to decipher 79 further inscriptions. This is the key to shedding light on the ancient world, this new tech. It guarantees a future for all the memory of life in Pompeii. This message, Irato's message, is one of the newly identified inscriptions, is consistent with the wall's previously known etchings, one of which translates to, I'm in a hurry, take care, my Sava, make sure you love me. Another preserves the patterns of an enslaved labourer named Methe, who wrote that she loves Cresto in her heart. She added, "May the Venus of Pompeii be favourable to both of them, and may they always be in harmony." There is another piece of graffiti of two gladiators that's about 4 inches tall. One figure holds a sword and shield is leaning backwards, perhaps representing a feint or a parry. The other is only partially visible, and he appears to be wielding similar weaponry. The movement depicted here through the twisting of the gladiator's left gladiator's chest is unique, reminiscent of the experience of a spectator in the amphitheatre. They have found another image depicting gladiatorial combat on the south wall. There's a figure who may be a woman, drawn wearing a helmet, wielding a shield. There are a few female gladiators mentioned in ancient documents, and if we're correct, this might be only one of the references to them in imagery. That's so cool. This is a 90-foot long passageway that connected two theatres in ancient Pompeii. And they think this acts as a kind of notice board where people leave messages, history, greetings, insults, drawings, and much more. That, of course, doesn't mean that that should inspire people in the modern time to do something similar. I'm thinking of all those people who carve things in to the Colosseum, etc. They do seem to think that men have scrawled more graffiti than women, but examples like Erato's aren't uncommon. Some of Pompeii's inscriptions read like modern-day Reddit forums, with two or more people responding and riffing on previous messages. But they do point out that Pompeians are much nicer in their graffiti than they are. There are lots of pairings with the words felicita, meaning happily. When you pair it with someone's name, you are hoping that things go well for that person. There are also inscriptions with insults, political barbs, and even sneering commentary on the graffiti's ubiquity. One message reads, "I admire you, wall, for not having collapsed and having to carry all the tedious scribblings of so many writers." I see that Andrew Madsen Windsor has been brought up in the chat. We haven't mentioned him or his situation. However, today I did film a video for Friday in which I explore the history of royals being arrested. I am not going to go into it here because it's not yet history news. And also, I have spoken to people and have been warned about the potentially litigious nature of those involved. And there are perhaps not enough allegedlys on Earth for me to converse about both the allegations that see him in bracelets and the others that don't, allegedly, the way I feel about that, and the wider context in which this has happened. I am speaking somewhat euphemistically, mostly because the things that I have seen coming out of those files boils me with the fury and heat of 1,000 suns. And if I start talking about it, there are not enough allegedlys on Earth for me not to find myself in a litigious situation, is what I'm going to say. Thank you, Jamie. Buy yourself an incredibly inexpensive coffee on me. Thank you ever so much. I certainly will. I shall buy myself a coffee and I shall take a deep breath. The news is wild. Like, I mean, we're here to talk about the history news, and frankly, it's a blessed relief and an escape from the doom scrolling every app, social media, BBC News, Reuters, just doom, 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 inescapable. And all I can say is that when I see people reacting to things that are in the files, crying, screaming on social media, and I see people in the comments being like, you probably should calm down, that's a bit of an overreaction. Not for this. Not for this. Are you well? This is indescribable and reprehensible, and it is it's so hard for me to articulate myself without swearing. I am so vehemently my feelings are so vehement that there should be more people who are spending the rest of their lives in prison for what has happened. And the fact that they aren't gives me the rage. It gives me the rage. Back to the history news. Archaeologists have found a hidden Roman staircase from 2,000 years ago. It's a shame that it doesn't open up straight to hell and we can just push people in there. Anyway, no, carrying on. They have found the former Roman praetorium and some of its features. This was found during excavations in Cologne in Germany. They've got a trio of Roman-era finds, with the oldest being in the historic Cologne, a first-century staircase that was once attached to the Roman governor's palace. They also found a private altar and within the palace that resembles altars preserved in Pompeii. They were working with the Romish-Germanic Museum and alongside crews constructing the LVR Jewish Museum in the Cologne archaeological quarter. And they were going to build an underground tour as part of the visitor experience, but they excavated deep into the first century Roman occupation, according to a translated statement from the city. And a section of the stone staircase was the oldest discovery. 2,000 years ago, it led from the Roman governor's palace towards the Rhine River. But the exact beginning and end point of the staircase is still unknown. The stairs are thought to be necessary because of the natural slope of the terrain required stairs to link the buildings with the riverbank at that spot. The most recent discovery they found came from the 4th century, where foundational remnants showed the apse of a multi-aisled basilica was previously only perceptible as a depression in the ground. In a surprise twist during the process that exposed the structure, it turned out the structure wasn't made of the typical Roman cast concrete. Instead, it had 13-foot layers, thick rock layers of volcanic rock, basalt, and limestone bonded with a strong mortar of crushed ceramic and gravel. It's thought that the sheer bulky strength of the foundation is what allowed it to remain intact for nearly 2,000 years. Jessie, I think it's a staircase that they don't know where it begins and ends because they don't know how far it went up. They've lost the top floor, but presumably also it's the bottom bit is either lost or unexcavated. They haven't got to the bottom of it. Unclear. The exact beginning and end point of the staircase is still unknown. So, and also, which is the beginning? Is the top the beginning or the bottom the beginning? Where's the beginning of a staircase? Either way, they don't know where the top of the bottom is, where it would have been, presumably because we've lost the top and the bottom is either lost or not dug out yet. Stuart says, remember the old Chinese curse, may live in interesting times. Yes, I don't know who we've annoyed. I can't help but feel that we've angered the old gods and the new by turning on the Hadron Collider. Something happened. A ferret got in, and something's gone wrong. We need to rewind. We've angered something. Leona, how are they going to protect it? It's not been specified. I assume with the techniques they use to protect such things. As they have got museums involved, I'm sure they will be, if it's going to be displayed to people, I'm sure they're going to have techniques in place to make sure that the human interference and interaction doesn't cause too much damage, I would imagine. But as when there are updates that appear, I will, of course, let you know. Right, next up, if anybody is eating, this now becomes the no eating section of your history news. I'm going to give you a little second. Also, if the after products of human consumption, what happens when people eat and it goes to the digestive system and then reappears, if that's something that you can't deal with, then now is the time. I'm about to flip the slide over. No eating, no eating. Here we go. We're on it. Scientists find the first physical evidence that Romans used human poop as medicine. God bless. We're only halfway through. Researchers in Turkey have unearthed archaeological evidence that points to Romans using human feces in medical treatments. Roman texts have described the practice, but this is the first time that physical evidence has been documented. Okay, so they spotted residue in Roman glass bottles. Residues were found in 7 different vessels, but they only obtained conclusive results from one artifact that was excavated in the ancient city of Pergamon. It dates from the 2nd century. They took out a clay cap and they collected a sample of brownish flakes, and they found that it contained human feces with a high concentration of thyme and olive oil. Grow up, Katrina. Come on, grow up. Okay, so this is a medicinal preparation that is used by the famous physician Galen. It is known, human animal feces were known as treatments from conditions ranging from inflammation and infection to reproductive disorders. They are discussed with euphemism or caution, but these substances were not necessarily perceived as repulsive or irrational. They occupy a liminal space in ancient pharmacy, considered potent and efficacious, yet symbolically and sensorily charged. You can say that again. So they provide evidence that fecal transfer, which holds an important place in modern medicine, was already known in antiquity. So it is modern. It does happen. It doesn't mean it doesn't squick me out. Or even though it's part of modern medicine, it's still, look, we still use leeches in modern medicine, but that also squicks me out. Okay. All right. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved 2 fecal transfer products for the prevention of recurrent bacterial infection of the colon in adults. This kind of bottle was typically used to hold perfume, but this was apparently repurposed as a medicine bottle. The thyme is used for the antibacterial property and to suppress the odor of the feces. When they opened it, they did not detect a noticeable smell. They point out that it's very nice to join up the tradition with archaeological material. The default's been to think that the little glass vessels in tombs held lovely luxuries, perfumes, and cosmetics. But the main contribution of this neat piece of research could be to widen that inquiry. Jessie, I guess, remember to keep breathing. Yes. Look, I'm aware this is used in modern medicine, but when you start to kind of salivate a bit because you feel a bit unwell. Jessie points out it's not much different from the poop pills that restore microbes someone's gut biome. No, it's not. It's not. It's completely not. Those also make me feel very unwell. I'll be honest with you, and I'm sure I'd be more unwell if I didn't take them when I needed them. I get that. I do. I need to grow up, but it makes me feel unusual. An elephant bone found in Spain might be proof of Hannibal's tanks with trunks. A 2,200-year-old bone has been unearthed near Cordoba in Spain. And it... Steve, am I doing the Little Britain thing? No, I'm not going to. I'm not doing that. And Jessie, leeches and also the fecal therapy, they are vital in medicine. They're vital in medicine. It doesn't mean it's the same thing. The thought, I recognize that having, for example, cataract surgery is life-changing. The thought of somebody touching my eyeball, doing surgery on my eyeball while I'm awake, God bless, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, even though I recognize it, I'm not squicked out because I think it's like primitive or fake medicine. I'm squicked out because it makes me feel unwell. Eyeballs, poop, leeches, maggots. No, all used in medicine. Don't like any of it. So, this may be the first archaeological evidence of battle elephants employed by Hannibal. This was tucked away in a bed of rubble alongside Carthaginian coins from the 3rd century BC. There's a baseball-sized ankle bone that serves as a bridge between a colourful historical narratives about the Second Punic War and hardened archaeological fact. They have found traces of combat, catapult ammunition found with this specimen that suggests this elephant died in battle. During the closing decades of the 3rd century BC, the Mediterranean was dominated by two superpowers, the emergent Roman Republic and Carthage, a North African city-state in what is now Tunisia. Leading the expansion was Hannibal of the Barca family, whose brother Mago is credited with bringing elephants to the Iberian Peninsula in 228 BC. Hannibal then revolutionizes warfare by deploying armoured pachyderms against local tribes. This terrifying shock force broke battle lines and provided elevated commanding positions for his archers. It's quite possible that the bone uncovered around Cordoba belongs to one of the elephants that Hannibal used to crush the Capetani tribe in central Spain. The artifact was found in isolation, with the rest of the animal's remains lost. This anomaly has led researchers to a curious possibility that this relic might have been intentionally spared, salvaged by someone who found its small size an ideal souvenir. It is supposed to be the third carpal bone from the elephant's right foreleg. They found this out by comparing it with anatomical collections at the University of Valladolid in Spain and Leiden in the Netherlands. The fate of the Cordoba elephant was undoubtedly grim, but it was probably a swifter mercy than the marathon of misery endured by Hannibal's herd. Over 5 grueling months, the elephant's caravan from Catalonia across the Pyrenees and the Rhone, ultimately scaling the snow-slicked Alps. Their 1,000-mile journey was less a military feat and more a slow-motion catastrophe. While accounts may vary, many historians believe a significant number of the elephants, perhaps nearly all 37, initially survived the passage. But by the spring of 1217 BC, Hannibal's grand trunk show had been reduced to a lone survivor, a tusk-shorn animal named Saurus, meaning the Syrian. The others had died following the Battle of Trebia because of exhaustion, wounds, and a severe winter ice storm. Hannibal is said to have ridden Saurus across the treacherous Arno marshes after losing an eye to infection. The chilling admission of the Roman playwright Plautus that Saurus set my heart a freezing endures as the ultimate testimonial to a creature that commanded absolute frosty respect. Wheezy asks, didn't the King of Siam write to Abraham Lincoln wondering if he had enough battle elements? Did he? I don't know about that. How interesting. I've not heard that story. That's very interesting. Next up, we've got a shiny. Scientists have brought back a golden fabric that was lost for 2,000 years. These are South Korean scientists. They have found this golden fabric that was once reserved for emperors. It mirrors the appearance and durability of sea silk, and it was crafted more than 2 millennia ago. Sea silk was one of the most coveted materials of the Roman Empire. Only the most influential figures, including emperors and popes, were allowed to wear clothing made from this golden fibre. The fabric became revered for its glowing appearance, feather-like feel, and remarkable strength, which helped it earn a reputation as a legendary silk. One of the best-known examples is the holy face of Manopello, a relic in Italy believed by many to be made of this rare cloth. The decline has reduced sea silk production. The once thriving Pinna nobilis population has collapsed due to marine pollution and ecological damage. And so now any form of harvesting has been banned by the EU, and this has reduced sea silk production to a near halt. There are only a few artisans capable of producing small amounts and turning the practice into a historical tradition rather than an active craft. To overcome the limitation, the team studied Atrina pectinata, a pen shell widely raised for food in Korea. They found that its byssus shares key physical and chemical traits with the original Mediterranean fibre. So they have developed a method to process threads and successfully reproduce the ancient fabric. Their work went further by identifying why the material's golden shine survived for centuries. Apparently the colour does not come from dyes, but from structural coloration, created when light interacts with nanoscale features. A spherical protein called photonin forms layered arrangements that reflect light like soap bubbles or butterfly wings. Its colour comes from structure rather than pigment, so it resists fading. The study also shows how structurally coloured textiles can maintain their appearance over long periods, noting the team's method offered a way to create lasting colour without relying on dyes or metals. By turning discarded pen shell byssus into valuable textile, it also supports sustainable material development while honouring a tradition rooted in cultural history. That's so cool. I really like that. What a cool story. A lost grave of a Viking warlord has been discovered on the English coast. Ivar, also known as Ivar the Legless or Ivar the Dragon, was a formidable 9th century Viking warlord who established a ruling dynasty in Dublin. Despite his historical significance, his grave has never conclusively been identified. Only 16 pre-Viking and Viking Age monumental ship burials are currently known in the region. None has yet been confirmed in the UK. Ship burials practiced by some early medieval cultures and mark of status and respect. The best-known example is the Anglo-Saxon ship burial discovered at Sutton Hoo in Suffolk. Historians have long argued that Vikings not only raided but settled in Cumbria, a theory supported by the high concentration of Scandinavian place names across the county. In 2001, a BBC TV programme examined DNA samples from locations across England. Of all the sites tested, only Penrith in East Cumbria showed strong evidence of Norwegian Viking ancestry in the modern population. The first radiocarbon dated Viking longhouse in England was identified in Kentmere Valley in the 1980s. A small Viking cemetery was uncovered near Carlisle, and since the 2000s, metal detecting has begun to uncover more evidence. For example, the Bechemet hoard, which includes silver from the Carolingian Empire and coins originating in Baghdad. It's suggested that there's an area that forms a large Viking Age necropolis. In early 2025, a 50-metre long late Viking Age hall was identified near Wigton by a Cumbrian Heritage Agency. An even larger hall, measuring about 63 metres, has been detected south of Gosforth. Archaeologists say this would be the largest pre-Norman hall known in the UK and Ireland. Metal detecting in the surrounding area has uncovered lead weights used to measure silver, along with large ship rivets and fittings, which Mr. Dickinson suggests support the theory of there being a ship burial there. Some historians have placed Lakeland in Norway or Scotland. Mr. Dickinson argues instead that the Irish sources point to the eastern shores of the Irish Sea. I consider Ivor's home kingdom was in West Cumbria. It figures he would have been buried there at his death. He was a famous sea king with a reputation of crossing the Irish seas from Dublin to Dumbarton on the Clyde and way beyond. It also figures that he would have been given a pagan burial in a ship in a mound overlooking the sea. Other scholars have suggested that Ivor was buried in Repton in Derbyshire on the site of a major Viking encampment, but that claim is based on a burial reportedly uncovered in 1686. I'm having a throat sweet. Apologies. My husband's just texted. I think this is based upon Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. His comment is, the battle elephant thing makes sense. Aren't vampires afraid of elephants? Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter was a great film. I loved it. And next up, we've got this one. Now, there's a reason for all the gaps in this, and that is because all of the gaps are human remains. So I haven't shown them here. But they have found a trepan skull of a Viking Age era man in a mass grave. I'm sure many of us do know what trepanning is, but it's when you drill a borehole in the skull in the attempt to relieve pressure or potentially evil spirits. This was a skeleton of a 6'5" tall or 1.9 meter Viking era man. He had a hole bored into his skull while he was alive, and it did have signs of healing before his remains are flung into a burial pit with 9 other men. It's thought by bone expert Dr. Trish Byers that he was suffering from a pituitary gland tumour that caused headaches, and that trepanning might have been an attempt to alleviate that pain. If he had a tumour on his pituitary gland, this could have caused an excess of growth, which might also explain his height. The average male at the time was about 5'6", so he is considerably taller. Trepan skulls have been found all over the world, including ancient Greece and Rome. The individual was found to be between 17 and 24 years old at the time of his death, and he had been put in face down, jumbled in with other remains. These remains appear to date to the 9th century, at which point the Cambridge area was a frontier zone in the conflict between the Saxon-run Kingdom of Mercia and the Kingdom of East Anglia. Archaeologists were puzzled by the mix of complete and dismembered remains, including skulls without bodies, stacks of legs, and 4 complete skeletons, some in position suggesting they were tied up. But there's not enough evidence to suggest they were victims of battle, although one had clearly been beheaded. Another was apparently bound, suggesting a possible execution. But those buried could have been recipients of corporal punishment, and that might be connected to Wandlebury as a sacred or well-known meeting place. Post-excavation work on the remains would include DNA and isotopic work to investigate health, kinship, and ancestral links. They're also going to help establish whether there were remains of Viking invaders or whether they are Saxons. Tony Calladine, who is the East of England Regional Director of Historic England, said, quote, "The extraordinary discovery there speaks to the story of our nation and the lives of ordinary people living in turbulent times." This is also featured on Digging for Britain, and I'm sure you can, if you've got iPlayer, you can go and find it. It will be on iPlayer. It was on BBC Two on the 4th of February at 8 p.m. So I think it should still be there if it goes back again. Back that far. Again, I've put a box over this picture because it had human remains. Anglo-Saxon children were discovered buried with warrior gear in the UK, and that's thought to have perhaps been a nod to, quote, the men these children might have become. 4 early Anglo-Saxon swords were uncovered during a recent archaeological investigation. And in that investigation, the person writing this, Duncan Sayers, said there was also a striking discovery of a child buried with a spear and a shield. Was this child an underage fighter, or were weapons more than mere tools of war to these people? Weapons are embedded with values. Would, for example, the Jedi Knights in the Star Wars franchise have a much nobility if they were armed with knives instead of lightsabers? Modern armies fight today remotely with missiles and drones, or mechanically with guns and armour. Yet in many countries, an officer still has a ceremonial sword, which worn incorrectly might reveal an imposter. This excavation that they carried out is also in BBC Two's Digging for Britain. They found, one of the swords they found had a decorated silver pommel and a ring which is fixed at the handle. This is a high status 6th century object sheathed in a beaver fur lined scabbard. There was another sword which had a small silver hilt and a wide ribbed gilt scabbard mouth. The earliest grave they found is one that other weapons graves used to guide their location, contained a man without metal artifacts or weapons. Weapon graves were more popular in the generations either side of the middle of the 6th century. So it's likely this person was buried before the fashion to dress to death with weapons was established. There was the further discovery of a 10 to 12-year-old child's grave with a spear and a shield. The child's curved spine made it unlikely he could have used these weapons comfortably. There was a second grave of a younger child containing a large silver belt buckle. It looks to have been far too large to be worn by the boy who was just 2 or 3 years old. Graves with objects like this usually belonged to adult men. Large buckles were a symbol of office in the later Roman and early medieval context, like the spectacular gold examples that were found at Sutton Hoo. So while it's not saying that these ancient weapons are purely ceremonial, there are dents on shields, wear on bladed weapons that make it clear they were used for both practice and for conflict. But there is, on top of that, and two things can be right at once, that there is a way of using them ceremonially as well as them being used actually. Weapons in the graves were as much an expression of loss and grief as they were a physical statement about strength or masculinity and the male family. Even battle-hardened ancient warriors cried. They buried their dead with weapons like swords that told stories. The spear, shield, and buckles found in the little graves spoke of the men these children might have become. Stuart asked, wasn't this on the Time Team channel recently? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Possibly. Do let us know if other people have seen this. We have got a carved painted Zapotec tomb. It's been found in Mexico. It's been described as the most important archaeological discovery in a decade. It is, as we can see, incredibly well preserved, dating back to the early 7th century. It's got carved walls, murals, sculptures, and it's been described as this incredibly significant discovery. This has been found in the valleys of central Oaxaca, which is a state in southern Mexico. The entrance of the stone tomb's antechamber, its small front room, is decorated with a complex sculptured portrait. There's a large owl head protruding from the overdoor, its curved beak open. Inside its mouth is a sculpted painted face of a man wearing wide hooped earrings, presumably a lord of the community. It's also flanked by carved painted door jambs, one depicting a woman and the other a man, with each figure holding artifacts and wearing a cloak, skirt, and large headdress. In the antechamber is another doorway leading to the burial chamber. Above the doorway is a frieze of engraved tombstones carved with calendrical names. The ancient Zapotec calendar is composed of 260 days divided into 20 months. Oh, it is pronounced Oaxaca. Thank you, Subi. So this is where it's found. The walls of the burial chamber are covered with murals. They're painted ochre, white, red, green, and blue. And they depict a parade of people walking towards the entrance of the tomb. They are carrying bags of copal, which is a resin from tropical trees that Mesoamericans commonly burned during ceremonies. Researchers are currently conserving, studying, and protecting this recently discovered tomb. They are stabilizing the mural paints, which are vulnerable to degradation from the roots, insects, and environmental changes. They are also going to be analysing the inscriptions from it and iconography to try and learn more about the rituals and funerary practices of this community. I'm not sure if there is a plan to open it up to the public. I can't see that yet. So it was visited with local residents and some researchers. Before entering the chamber, it was blessed by pouring a shot of mezcal onto the floor. When they went in, apparently, one researcher raised their hands and asked permission of the wind, earth, and Zapotec to enter. So there's no discussion that I can see of a plan to open it up to the public yet. And so I'm assuming for that reason as well that they are keeping it pretty quiet as to where it is. But I mean, the carvings, as we can see in the images, they are incredible, and the detail is amazing. Brilliant. How cool is that? We have got a medieval aristocratic home that's been identified in Switzerland. Traces of the 14th century residence of the Lords of Gelterkinden, known as the Weyer House, have been identified in northern Switzerland by researchers from Barcelona Archaeology. They found a wall of the site previously in 1936, with additional sections being uncovered in 2021. But now they've identified the outline of the structure, which is nearly 46 feet wide and at least 60 feet long, as well as a moat that surrounded it. The Lords of Gelterkinden are said to have built this home after abandoning the nearby Scheidig Castle in 1320. This building that we're talking about here was eventually destroyed by fire in the 15th century and was described as a ruin in around 1540. So they have found it. Oh. So maybe it's Oaxaca. Oaxaca. Oh, and Stuart says, I think this is the Time Team one. You won't be able to post the URL in the chat. It won't let you, which is kind of annoying. It's called, if you search "Return to the Princely Burial," then he thinks that will pop up for you. Venomous Care Bear says the wife says Oaxaca is correct. Oaxaca is correct. She's a native speaker. Thank you very much for the correction. Thank you. A medieval wheel cross has been recovered in Germany. A volunteer archaeological conservator, Julian Rangnau, discovered a medieval bronze wheel cross with a metal detector while investigating a site with wooden traces of a church in northeastern Germany. The object revealed fits into a mould that was unearthed in 1983 at the castle rampart in the Spandau area of Berlin, which is about 45 miles away. The Brandenburg State archaeologist Matthias Wemhoff said the bronze wheel cross was likely produced by a blacksmith in Spandau for a large market. Quote, Christian symbols were widespread before the Slavic uprising of 983. In this revolt, Slavic tribes rejected the new religion and only became Christian after the region became part of the Holy Roman Empire. Quote, the new find is one of the rare early pieces of evidence of the unique history of Christianization of the northwestern Slavs, which continues to shape northeastern Germany to this day. That's from Lucas Goldman of the Brandenburg State Office for Monument Preservation and Archaeological State Museums. So isn't that cool? We are hopping over to the United States of America now. Soil from Washington's ancestral home has been taken to the US. A Tudor manor house in England with links to the first president is helping to mark the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. George Washington's great-grandfather left Solgrave Manor, Northamptonshire, to settle in the colony of Virginia in the 1600s. Americans regard George Washington as the, quote, father of the nation, we're told, a pivotal figure who helped to pave the way for the country to declare its independence from Britain in 1776. Soil from the grounds of Solgrave Manor has now been placed in a time capsule that will be installed beneath one of America's most iconic landmarks. United States of America friend in the chat, what does this notion of ancestral soil evoke in you? I'm asking this because I have seen some things on social media of, I'm assuming, newborn infants in the United States. It'll be like born in California or born wherever, but the first soil she touches is Irish or Welsh or whatever. And they've brought like a Tupperware of grass. So, according to popular legend, George Washington vowed to never set foot on British soil. To respect that, his statue in London's Trafalgar Square stands on soil imported from his Mount Vernon estate in Virginia. John Gerber, who is the president of the Friends of Washington statue, raised $1.4 million to have the London statue restored and rededicated in the summer of 2025, but then had another plan. John had been collecting some clay soil from Solgrave to put into a time capsule. And it's going to be buried this spring in the plaza beneath the Washington Monument in the US Capitol. So in one sense, Washington will stand on British soil for the first time. Some think this might be a controversial move and that Washington vow should be respected. They do point out that even after becoming president, he was very quick to work with Britain and to say that everyone should be friendly and peaceful towards each other. The time capsule was presented to the US government in a special ceremony in Mount Vernon on the 7th of January, which was attended by our Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy. Lammy said that Washington was a pioneer, a fighter, and a visionary. He was absolutely determined that the United States should be independent and free, and that is what he achieved. I think the idea of a time capsule is very beautiful because, of course, that is looking not just to the past, but to the future. Jessie, it's like someone who's been here for 4 generations claimed that they were Irish. However, that is, like, obviously, I don't, from an outsider's perspective, that is something that I see happening and being presented to me. And those claims of, for example, Irishness or Italianness in people who, in it, we are talking 4 generations. And sometimes, you know, this sort of, it is peculiar to me. It is peculiar to me. Fluffy Monkey, it sounds like people just romanticizing where the kid was born, but no, because they say born in Florida, but the first place they set foot is on Irish soil. So they've got a Tupperware box full of like grass and dirt, presumably that's been posted over from Cork or Cardiff or Edinburgh. I don't know. I suppose it's because I don't feel that connection to anywhere apart from Britain, which is where I was born. And to my knowledge, my family name, there's evidence of it dating back to the Norman conquest. I'm not sure if my lot came over then, but I don't know when we came over. So I suppose I don't really feel that connection to another community. Lisbeth, there's an interesting 3-generation theory of immigrants, where the first generation that immigrates abandons their culture in order to integrate. The second generation grows up not knowing anything. Then the third generation rediscovers it and identifies with it. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. Yeah. But what I do find it strange when there are pronouncements about cultural practices or national identity directed towards people who were born and raised in the place, people who are, as we said, 3 generations out. And I see it causing kind of conflict and contradictions frequently. But yes, I suppose it's kind of, I can see that for some people, this notion of ancestral soil is incredibly powerful. And so this will have meaning, I know, for many people. We have got a 17th century shipwreck popping up. Hi, Jin. Yes, welcome. Hello. You made it. There was no notification. I'm sorry. And I did use your picture. Thank you very much. And people didn't guess what it was. I had to tell them. So well done. So we have got a shipwreck popping up on a beach in the wake of Storm Chandra. This was found in Studland Bay in Dorset, which is run by the National Trust. Studland is one of the most beautiful pieces of coastline in our country. It's brilliant. If you are in the UK, do take a trip down Dorset. I love Dorset. It's beautiful. I mean, you've got the Jurassic Coast in Dorset, but also you've got Studland Bay, which is just beautiful. Marine archaeologists from Bournemouth University think it's part of a missing piece of the Swash Channel wreck that was first discovered in the 1990s. It's thought the wreck is most likely the Fayum from Horn, an armed Dutch merchant ship that ran aground and sank in 1631. They think they found the hull. It's about 6 meters long and 2 meters wide. There is a large layer of planking missing from the vessel's interior, which indicates the remains have been buried in the sand since the 1630s. That's what the National Trust is saying. There are still wooden tree nails in place, and they are holding after 400 years, which is a real testament to the craftsmanship of the time. The Bournemouth University team have applied to Historic England for a grant to excavate the timbers on the presumption that it is part of a protected wreck. The maritime archaeologist from Historic England said the Swash Channel wreck is one of only 57 shipwrecks around the coast of England designated under the Protection of Wrecks Act 1973. These wrecks have legal protection, meaning that any disturbance or interference is only permitted under an official licence. It's hoped the timbers revealed at Studland will join a collection currently being displayed at the Poole Museum. Until then, visitors have been urged to help protect the site by not touching the exposed timbers. The ship originally, the Fame of the Horn, was thought to be around 40 metres long, 10 metres wide, and 15 metres high. It could have carried more than 40 guns to defend itself against pirates. It's said that all 45 members of the crew abandoned ship safely when it grounded, but the wreck was soon looted by people in the area. Clue said, you once asked why Scotland the Brave was being played at an Irish parade and was swarmed by people determined to tell me how incredibly similar the Scottish and Irish cultures are. Okay. Well, say that in a bar in Glasgow or in Cork. Steve points out good luck importing soil into Australia. I mean, in terms of their capacity to protect their natural flora and fauna, they take it seriously, as they should. I mean, with that being said, maybe some disruption of their flora and fauna wouldn't go amiss, considering everything in Australia is actively trying to murder you at all times. I've never been to Australia. I would love to go, but I am utterly terrified of the fact that everything there wants you dead. I mean, the entire middle of the country just wants you dead. Every animal that you can come across either wants to give you chlamydia or make you dead. Terrifying. There is like nothing. Even our snakes here, they can't get you. Like a bee might sting you unless you're allergic. You're fine. Elizabeth, have I watched The Night of the Seven Kingdoms? No. What's that? I haven't. Do you know? Honestly, apart from like Number Blocks, Bluey, and various Mickey Mouse based things, I have not watched TV. I'm assuming this is a TV show. Is it a film? Is it a TV show? I don't know. Oh, Stuart saying the Tory scene was amazing. It's got okay, all right. I'm about to have a look at this. The Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Okay, okay. I've not even seen any adverts for it. I've been living under a rock. Oh yeah, my husband points out the other thing we've been watching on loop is Wallace and Gromit. My eldest is absolutely obsessed with Wallace and Gromit. So we were out at a soft play, and he just turned to his friend and goes, "You better watch out, or I'm going to bang you up in the zoo, and you'll be there, literally doing bird." And I'm like, no one else watches stop motion the way you do, babe. No, he has no idea what you've just said to him. He's confused, but he is laughing. So we'll carry on, shall we? Steve Clark, is it the penguin? I think you'll find that's Feathers McGraw. Yes. My God, Gabriel loves Feathers McGraw. Loves him. He loves the villain. He's a future Iago. That's what he is. He loves the villains. But they're more interesting. And as I'm pretty sure he's going to end up being an actor, of course he loves the villains. This is what my husband found. And he loves data. He loves it. Londoners used data to survive the Great Plague. So in 1665, when plague is sweeping through London, there is evidence to suggest that people aren't just praying or fleeing, they're checking the numbers. Kerry, my kids love Wallace and Gromit too. They started asking for cheese and snack. My husband gave my son moon cheese at the weekend. He was very excited, mostly because he'd wrapped a Freddo in it. So it was double cool. There is an exhibition at Young V&A on Wallace and Gromit, which I'll be taking the boy to. Kathleen, in my kids' room, there is a wanted, and we have got a metal wanted poster of Feathers McGraw. We're a Feathers McGraw family. What can I say? Cheese is a perfectly good snack. In fact, it's one of the first words my youngest uses. He goes, "Wow, cheese. And then we give him cheese and olives. So, research by Karen McBride, who's an accounting professor at the University of Portsmouth, is arguing that weekly bills of mortality acted as early public health information, allowing Londoners to navigate life, work, and survival during the Great Plague. So she points out, what's interesting to me is the fact that Samuel Pepys, who I made a short video on yesterday, because today's his birthday. This is the anniversary of him going and snogging the corpse of Catherine of Valois, for those of you who don't know. But either way, in his diary, he notes using the bills of mortality to go about his daily life. So Londoners are using the increase and decreases to judge personal risk, where they're going to travel, when they're going to travel, when they might leave the city, and to also assess when it might be safe for them to return as well. These figures are being discussed in coffee houses and they're being compared socially. While the accuracy is sometimes questioned, the doubt doesn't mean rejection. They are trusted enough for people to use them to guide their behaviour. This is really interesting. Although many believe that plague was caused by miasma, practical measures such as isolation and distancing were adopted. Although the ideas behind why they did these things might have been different to the reality, it is in fact quite helpful. Pepys, who was an upwardly mobile, wealthy Londoner as well as a dirty pervert, was able to interpret trends, reduce contact, and move his household. For people who were less affluent, like servants and labourers, they often had much less flexibility. Plague deaths among the poor were more likely to be misclassified, underreported, or even concealed. So while people truly believe that they're giving information, they're letting people know the situation and they're informing people, they're enabling people to act that doesn't always get received equally. The Great Plague of London killed an estimated 100,000 people in 18 months, about a fifth of the capital's population. Between 1665 and 1666, plague deaths climbed in the capital, and some sections of society, though, were not simply passive victims. They were reading, interpreting, reacting to data available to them, using weekly death figures to navigate one of the deadliest years in the city's history. Jessie, I used to love buying the squeaky cheese. Oh my gosh, halloumi. Love a squeaky cheese. Love a squeaky cheese in this house. Scarlett, that is indeed why we call him Creepy Peeps. Creepy Peeps. Elizabeth, My favourite paper title from my undergrad, Shut Up! Bubonic Plague and Quarantine in Early Modern England. That's a great title. Great title. He may have had dubious morals, but he was a very good naval administrator. I don't take that away from him. Great in the naval office. An absolute weapon in his home, in the chapel, and apparently in the abbey as well. Could not keep his sticky little hands to himself. A Florida coin haul worth $1 million has resurfaced a debate over treasure hunting. Recent discoveries have renewed archaeologists' concerns that a shipwreck salvage company has exclusive rights to artifacts that have been found aboard a sunken 1715 fleet. Divers have uncovered more than 1,000 late 17th and early century Spanish coins. This is off the coast of Florida last summer. It's about 100 miles north of Miami, and it's known as Treasure Coast, named for the cargo above the Spanish flotilla that sank there in 1715. A Florida-based shipwreck salvage company that discovered the latest trove of coins, 1715 Fleet Queen's jewels, has exclusive rights to the remains of this fleet. The fleet set sail from Havana after years of conflict during the War of Spanish Succession, which ended the previous year. Their flotilla's cargo comprised silver, gold coins that were thought to have been minted in the Empire's American colonies. But they also had tobacco, which was as valuable as a precious metal. It also had the legendary Queen's jewels, a gift for the new Queen of Spain, Elizabeth Farnese, which is yet to be found. It had an unusual composition. It was made of a combination of ships from the Nueva España fleet, which sailed between Veracruz and Seville, and the Tierra Firme fleet, which covered the South American trade route out of Cartagena. In 2010, the 1715 Fleet Queen's jewels obtained exclusive rights to salvage operations in the area. The recent discovery of the Spanish coins might be the company's most significant to date, but it comes with challenges. These wrecks occurred close to shore, and as such, recovery can be difficult and dangerous. Poor sea conditions and visibility and a short season are among the most challenging things we face. Florida law stipulates that the state entitles 20% of what's found aboard shipwrecks, with the company keeping the rest. Some of the coins will go to the state of Florida, others to the owners and finders, and so they will go their separate ways. But this new discovery brings up the conflicting views of underwater exploration around the globe. 80 countries, including Spain, adhered to the 2001 UNESCO Convention on the Protection of Underwater Cultural Heritage, which prioritizes in situ preservation and views the commercial exploitation of underwater cultural heritage and its dispersal as incompatible with its protection. But the US chose not to sign on to the convention, citing concerns over coastal state jurisdiction and national security implications for sunken ships. As we know, treasure hunters are not archaeologists. They are merchants who profit from heritage coming from a shared history. The 17 Fleet Queen's jewel team claims to be doing right by the shipwreck and its artifacts. It employs a marine biologist, an archaeologist, lawyers, boat captains, divers, surveyors, mappers, and conservation experts working in a state-approved lab. The company plans to document in detail the naturally well-preserved coins that were buried under the sand for centuries. Quote, "The historic relevance of the discovery is what it can teach us. The finding can give insights into the makeup of shipments and Spanish colonial coins, but historians remain skeptical. Treasure hunting has evolved, yet it's still focused on retrieving artifacts for a profit, while underwater archaeology preserves heritage and facilitates research. This extends to registering each finding before extraction, with private operations often keeping records confidential. In the meantime, the exploration of the 1715 shipwreck shows no sign of stopping. The team will continue on the trail to determine if these coin discoveries are part of a large deposit. And they plan to restart their search as early as May of this year. Looking at your comments. I have to say I am skeptical and concerned about the idea of treasure hunting for a profit. I don't see how that is a, in quotes, good thing for our global heritage. And I also have questions and concerns about the dispersal of these artifacts and where they might end up. I think if it's correct that they keep the way they find things confidential, it's also very concerning too. It's also, yeah, I don't love it. I don't love it. Here's an excellent. These are treasures that have been found on the HS2 route, which at some point allegedly might open, maybe. God knows, I can't keep track. So we have got, for example, a Roman coin that was unearthed. We have got the picture below is a French pipe. My face, hang on, let me hide my face. That is a pottery head. That's a pottery head detached from a Roman vessel. Next up, this looks like it could have come straight off of an old England football team brooch. It is, though, the Three Lions pendant, and it dates back to the 13th to 14th century. And they've got a map showing you the route that HS2 is supposed to take. We've also got, this is a Roman gladiator tag. They think if it had been complete, it would have read Domine Victor Vincas Felix. Lord Victor, may you win and be lucky. Then beneath it, we've got a decorated Anglo-Saxon spindle whirl that was used to provide weight while spinning yarn. Isn't that incredible? And I'm just going to hide the comments quickly because we've also got a dice, a medieval die here, a polished die. Isn't that cool? Medieval. And we have got a complete figurine of a seated pug dog, thought to have been made in the Derby porcelain factory around 1770 to 1800. And then beneath it, I think people spotted it, some 19th century gold dentures. A set of lower gold dentures found at St Mary's Old Church in Stoke Mandeville. It's got 6 teeth and has a number stamped inside. Now, I don't believe those are human teeth. I don't believe they're human teeth. On the bridge. Happy to be corrected. But that's why I've shown it. I also think the bridge work is incredible. Neil Redfern, who's from the Council of British Archaeology, said the scale is what makes it so extraordinary. The length of the scheme and the landscapes and places that HS2 passed through is what makes the collection of sites and materials so interesting. The research potential from this material is remarkable. He thinks these finds can help people understand the wider landscape, how it changes now and in the past. The future of the item, though, is less clear. A spokesperson for HS2 explained that under English property law, these finds that are made during works either belong to the government or the landowners. Landowners may wish to retain title to object, in which case they will be returned to their care. The archive manager for the project said she and her team were asking landowners to donate them where possible so that people around the route could enjoy them. She would love to see the majority of these items deposited with local museums from near to where they were found. Aren't they cool? Next up, this is going up for auction. When's it going up? I mean, the bidding's already opened, and I think it closes on the 25th of February. So this Wednesday. This is a document from the reign of Lady Jane Grey, the very short reign of Lady Jane Grey, signed by her Privy Council and including Thomas Cranmer as her Archbishop of Canterbury. It is dated to the 17th of July, 1553, from the Tower of London. You have got signatures of Thomas Cranmer, Thomas Goodrich, who's Bishop of Ely, William Paulet, John Russell, the Earl of Bedford, Francis Talbot, the Earl of Shrewsbury, Thomas Darcy, who's a baron, George Brooke, Baron Cobham, Thomas Cheney, Privy Councillor, Richard Cotton, Privy Councillor, John Cheek, who's a secretary, Sir John Mason, and Sir Robert Bowes. The address panel is inscribed to our loving friend, Armagul Wood Esquire, one of the clerks of the Privy Council. It's obviously an incredibly rare survival. It's such a short reign that there are few surviving documents from those very few days because there were so few of them. And it's capturing this regime's effort to assert its authority just 2 days before its collapse, at which point the Privy Council would just turn around and declare Mary Tudor as Queen. So it's up for sale, and when I get an update on how much it's sold for, I will, of course, update you. Now, February, as I'm aware, in the US is Black History Month. Over in the UK, we recognise that in October. This is an article about the first Black History Month, February 1926. The eminent Black scholar Carter G. Woodson, who is known as the, quote, father of Black history, founded the celebration. And he called on communities across the United States to observe a week-long celebration of Black history. He urged members of the public to ask, quote, every church, school, lodge and club in their locality to host talks and events, request that libraries stock up on, quote, books, setting forth dispassionately what the, in his words, Negro has thought and felt and attempted and accomplished. He talks about the preservation of these records as not the duty of one man, not the duty of any particular group of men, it is the duty of us all. His call to action marked the first, what he called Negro History Week, a precursor to today's Black History Month. It debuted at a time when few scholars viewed Black history as worthy of study. One curator at the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture says in an email, Woodson was often confronted with the bigotry of the historical profession, the near absence of African Americans in history books, or where present, only as never having made meaningful contributions to history. He believed that if he didn't document the chronicles of Black people and people from the African diaspora, if he didn't write this record, Black people wouldn't be acknowledged with their humanity. He grew up as a child in the Jim Crow South and was therefore rarely able to attend school. He was born to formerly enslaved sharecroppers in Virginia. He spent much of his youth helping out on the family farm and making it to the classroom only on days when the weather was too poor for him to work outside. Nevertheless, he had a passion for learning. He enrolled in high school at the age of 20 and he graduated in under 2 years. He got a bachelor's degree and then he went on to teach briefly in the Philippines. He returned home and got a second bachelor's degree and then a master's degree from the University of Chicago before enrolling in a history PhD program at Harvard in 1908. He graduated from Harvard in 1912, becoming the second Black American to receive a PhD from the university. He entered the world of academia and he found himself repeatedly barred from white-dominated spaces, including the annual meeting of the nation's premier history organization. He also saw there was a distinct lack of scholarly resources dedicated to African American history. And so in 1915, he set out to readdress the balance. He believed there can be no celebration without education. He felt that eventually there will be no need for this History Week because Black history will be studied alongside other history. By the 1940s, the celebrations have become increasingly sophisticated and well attended. He died in 1950 at the age of 74, and his celebration was celebrated as a crowning achievement. An erstwhile colleague of Woodstock, Du Bois, wrote, "I know of no one man who in his lifetime has, unaided, built up such a national celebration." You can learn about his legacy if you visit the Carter G. Woodson Home, a National Historical Site that is in Washington, D.C., which is going to reopen later this year. You can also find out more about the father of Black history at sites along the US Civil Rights Trail, including the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And what's that word say? What's that word say? It's very blurred on my screen. It's a college in Kentucky. I can't read the first word, unfortunately. This is funding is being, and there's a project that's looking out for help. This is about rediscovering. Apologies. Missing comments, maybe? So this is about rediscovering Tavistock Abbey. It's a now fully funded project as they've got the award of a £249,226 grant from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. They also had a grant from Historic England secured. This Tavistock Abbey was founded in 974 AD, and it's one of Devon's most significant medieval religious foundations. For more than 5 centuries, it influenced spiritual, political, and economical life of the region. The funding they've got will enable heritage conservation, archaeological investigation, community archaeology digs, research projects, and new interpretation to help residents and visitors understand the Abbey's physical footprint. It's not simply about conserving stone, it's about revealing context, about asking better questions. So this is really important for the site, but also for the wider community. So between now and March 2026, they're going to be finalising detailed plans, procurement, and programme scheduling. If you want to keep up with what's going on with finding this abbey, then you can go to and there's also going to be community participation opportunities and key milestones. Then do go and check out this website, but also they have got a volunteering page. So if you go to this, you can click on it, and then you will be able to sign up as a volunteer if you are about in the area where you and you would like to do some stuff. That's what it was. Yes, Berea College. That's what it reads. Thank you very much. Wait, Stuart. So Tavi is 20 miles from you. Well, Stuart, if you've got free time, they're looking for volunteers for all sorts of things. Get over there and sign up. Now, right, this one I'm confused about. So I'm going to read you 2 separate texts, one on this page, one on the next page. The Guardian is reporting the British Museum has removed the word Palestine from some displays. It says they provided labelling on maps and panels saying the term was used inaccurately and is no longer historically neutral. The article points out that concerns were recently raised by UK lawyers for Israel and a voluntary group of solicitors about references to Palestine in displays covering the ancient Levant and Egypt, which risk, quote, obscuring the history of Israel and the Jewish people. In a letter to the museum's director, Nicholas Cullinan, the group wrote, quote, applying a single name Palestine retrospectively to the entire region across thousands of years erases historical changes and creates a false impression of continuity. It also has the compounding effect of erasing the kingdoms of Israel and Judea, which emerged from around 1000 BC, and the reframing of the origins of the Israelites and the Jewish people as erroneously stemming from Palestine. They said the chosen terminology implies the existence of an ancient and continuous region called Palestine. It asked the museum to review its collections and revise terminology so relevant regions are referred to as Canaan, the kingdom of Israel, or Judah or Judea, depending on the period or periods described. Several displays have been updated. The museum has said these changes were made last year after feedback and audience research. The museum has said that, quote, while the term Palestine was well established in Western and Middle Eastern scholarship as a geographical and neutral designation for the southern area of the Levant since the 19th century, it recognised the term no longer holds a neutral designation and may be understood in reference to a political territory. A spokesperson, I'm assuming from the museum, added, quote, for the Middle East galleries, for maps showing ancient cultural regions, the term Canaan is relevant for the southern Levant in the later second millennium BC. We use the UN terminology on the maps that show modern boundaries, for example, Gaza, West Bank, Israel, Jordan, and refer to Palestinian as a cultural or ethnographic identifier where appropriate. There has been a change.org petition calling for this to be reversed. 5,000 people have signed. Further changes, we are told, are expected as part of the museum's long-term reconstruction and redisplay programme, and they will be implemented in coming years. So from that article, correct me if I'm wrong, I have directly quoted various paragraphs. From that article, it is saying that this change was suggested and museum spokespeople are agreeing that it's happened and it's already happened. So why I am confused is because this is from a day before this article went out, just so we're clear. No, a day after this article went out. So this statement is a day after this article goes out. And the statement reads simply, quickly, it has been reported the British Museum has removed the term Palestine from displays. It is simply not true. We continue to use Palestine across a series of galleries, both contemporary and historic. So that dates the 16th of February. And I believe this article went out on the 15th. So I can't tell you, I haven't been to the museum since this. And I'll be honest with you, I probably couldn't tell you what's been changed because I don't know the panels that well. I have no idea. It says that a spokesperson, the Guardian says a spokesperson from the museum talked about this. The museum's saying it's not true. Literally no idea what to tell you. I find this mixed messaging confusing. Fluffy Monkey suggests that maybe this is about them saying they changed it in some places but not others. It's a tricky use of language. Well, in which case, if that's the case, explain why. Explain why and where. What? I don't understand where this miscommunication has come from. The Guardian is known to be a reputable journalistic outlet. Why would they claim they've spoken to a museum spokesperson if they haven't? So have they been conned by somebody claiming to be a museum spokesperson? In which case, how did that happen? Or is the British Museum burying? I've got no idea. I've got no idea what this means. But the confusion around the messaging here and the lack of clarity is not doing anyone or any institution a service, in my opinion. And they need to get their poop in a group. Everybody involved, because it needs to be whatever's happened needs to be clearly described, explained, and shown. When there's an update, I'll let you know. I can provide you with no further information apart from to go, what is going on here and why? Why is this what's happening? Our last new news is about a history play, so I'm putting it in. On Thursday evening, during the final scene of Richard III at a performance in Berlin, a sword slipped out of the person playing Richard III's hand and struck a member of the audience in the head. She was only hit by the sword's grip, not its blade, fortunately, and she did get a light injury, but was able to walk out of the theatre after being treated on site. This is a bad time. So the performance is immediately interrupted. The actor playing Richard III apologises to the woman and then asks for the house lights to come up. Best case scenario in this situation. The theatre doctor treats the woman, no ambulance is needed, and then the actor even had a phone call with the woman to make sure she was on the mend. A scene had been designed with a stunt coordinator and was practiced regularly. This was a slip up, and they are going to continue with regular scheduling of the shows. This is not, though, the first case of onstage injury. The actor involved was injured during a performance of Hamlet. He slipped, hit his head on a concrete balcony, and lost consciousness. In that case, he eventually continued his performance. The audience, according to the actor, thought it was all part of the play. I mean, it's very lucky that she wasn't harmed. With live theatre, accidents do happen. I think it was during a performance of Lear, and I want to say it was Ian McKellen playing the fool, but he may have been playing Lear. Either way, whomever was playing the fool was capering about on stage, and I think they snapped their Achilles tendon on stage. And the show had to go on. I've heard of audience members, I know of audience members where people have fallen off the stage onto the audience. I haven't heard before of a sword exiting the stage. I know of one performance where do you know what? I want to say that it was Jude Law, but don't quote me on that. The show had been touring, and they were using a retractable dagger, and to get the effect in the retractable dagger, there was a vessel, a pouch of pig's blood. And the stage manager / the armourer, it would have been both of them involved. I don't know if the wrong weapon was put out, the wrong prop weapon was put out, or they hadn't done proper maintenance, which is, again, not a good shout at all. But when they went on stage, the knife was deployed, but they hadn't cleaned out the blood. And so it had clotted around the blade, so it didn't retract. So the actor was stabbed on stage. Yeah, Julesy, I think the audience thought it was part of the play when the actor banged his head and lost consciousness in Hamlet, rather than the sword going out. They would have known that wasn't part of the play because he asked for the house lights to come out. Venomous Care Bear, Tom Hiddleston's sword snapped and the blade went into the audience in Coriolanus. Donmar didn't hit anyone, so they kept going, look, yeah, that's that's really dangerous. That's really scary. It's, there are so many things on a stage that can go wrong. Like, you have got, just above your head, you have got hundreds of pounds worth, like weights worth of lights. If one of those comes loose, if that system fails, you aren't walking away from that in any way. You have got movable scenery, you've got stage weapons, you've got costumes that get in your way that you trip up, and also you're just so full of adrenaline that you do everything at 100%. So yes, it's yeah. Elizabeth, sweaty actors, plastic grip, a bad time. Yeah. So that's a dangerous history play moment. And now we're going on to our one ding dong that we have, and it is tourists behaving badly at an Italian church. This is a church. It looks beautiful. It's in the Dolomites. Wonderful. It's a small village church called Santa Maddalena, and it is, as they say, a picture of alpine beauty. Up to 600 tourists a day flock to the site, with many posting pictures of the historic church on social media. Now, though, there has been an uptick of intrusive behaviour by visitors. There are 2,500 residents of the municipality that houses the church, and they've had enough. The local council chief for social welfare points out they want that photo at all costs. They have no respect, walking into people's gardens, leaving their cars where they want. We're not living anymore. It's predominantly a German-speaking municipality near the Austrian border, and they talk about a rise of traffic jams, trespassing, and littering. So the plan is to install barriers on the narrow road leading to the church between mid-May and November, so that car access will be restricted to residents and tourists who are spending one night in the area. Day trippers can come, but they must park in a designated area and walk 30 minutes to reach the church, which would be beautiful. It's a beautiful area. Park your car elsewhere. The parking fee that's currently only €4 will rise, although the officials haven't decided by how much. However much it costs to clear the litter, rise it by however much it costs to clear up the litter and to preserve the roads, etc. Apparently, they arrive in coaches in the morning. They're at Cortina by the afternoon and then Venice by the evening. They go to Florence and Rome from there, visiting Italy in a week. So there are tensions between locals and tourists. They don't object to mass tourism, but apparently 8,000 people a day flocked to the Cicada Mountain, which meant that local farmers set up a turnstile on the hiking trail, charging visitors €5 each. Good for them. They say, we need order, both for those who live here and for those who want to arrive. Take the classic photo and leave. Fair enough. Fair enough. Stuart, you do. I also used to do a HEMA. Yeah, protective gear. Even a foiled sword. I mean, depending on which version of HEMA and which group you fight with, but the foiled weapons we were fighting with were £3.5 to £4. if that catches your finger, if that hits your arm at full pelt, that's fracturing your bones without a shadow of a doubt. And that's a foiled weapon. So yeah, you wear a chest protector, you wear armored gloves, you wear a heavy duty fencing foil, because you don't mess about with that. It's no joke. I remember many moons ago in my misspent youth, I was up at the Edinburgh Fringe, and there was a company, another university drama company, and they were doing Julius Caesar. And they were on, I think, at the same time as us. But the word on the street was this is unbelievable. They were using real kitchen knives with the blades covered by masking tape for Julius Caesar. Wild behavior. Wild behavior. Yeah, that was that. We even, back in the early to mid-aughts, we were like, that's a bad choice. That's a really, I think it was like 2006, 2007. We were like, we're doing that. You should not be, they're like, oh, we've choreographed it. Have you? Have you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Julesy talking about this church. What we have is a general lack of respect for others these days. Look, working in heritage, since the pandemic, there has been a general shift in behavior that has been quite startling for everybody who works in heritage. And this is just one aspect of it. But there should be no problem with the walk. I mean, my husband pointed out, look at Corfe Castle. It's a 45-minute walk into a valley, up a hill, and then a 2-minute walk after to exit back to the car park, that was so funny. We parked in this car park and we followed the walk up, and the view going up is brilliant. And we were there, it's before Dominic, I was pregnant with Dominic. So we were going up there with Gabriel, and he was fully in his frozen phase. So as we round past the trees and he looks up at Corfe Castle, this child screams at the top of his lungs, Elsa! And then just starts running. And he must have been 3, just absolutely pelting his way up this hill. And he had the time of his life. It took us about 45 minutes to get up there. And then when we came out, there's like a little village, we had a lovely time, we had a lunch. And we came out and we just suddenly walked back out, and I'm like, the car park is here. I feel the 45-minute walk was unnecessary, but we loved it. And as my husband points out, he had the child, the pram, all of the bags that were required to go out with a 3-year-old, and it was summer in the midday sun. He was our pack donkey for that. The walk would be amazing. Jessie, I'm going to put it to you this way. Many of you know that I do costume interpretation. Since the pandemic, like there's people behave weirdly to people in costume, right? So before the pandemic, I have been touched inappropriately. I did have somebody come up to me and run their finger across my neck and talk about how it wasn't safe for Tudor ladies, and I had such a pretty little neck, which did make me want to vomit in my mouth. But since the pandemic, there have been times where I've been threatened with being punched in the face. People jumping, grabbing, all sorts of things. Utterly wild behavior. So yeah, there were pockets of bad behavior. Like my male colleagues would have people walk up and grab their cod pieces before the pandemic and go, honk, honk. So my male colleagues, if you grabbed their cod piece, they would scream like they were in their cod piece. Bum rolls used to get grabbed a lot because a lot of the clothing has like padding underneath. There were people that believed that there was padding everywhere. So they wanted to check, for example, that your breasts were real. One of my friends was, in fact, pregnant herself, and they thought that it was a false belly. So that got violently shaken, which is not great when you are pregnant. So that was all happening before the pandemic. But the aggression levels have really stepped up. People can be wild. Yeah. And also, just like spatial awareness, spatial awareness has gone away. People are either too far away or too close. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, Scarlett, it's definitely assault. It's definitely assault. Yeah, for sure. Without a doubt. I can. There is a reason why at Disney the costume characters are accompanied by somebody. There's a reason. And that's because members of the public can't be trusted. They need a guard with them. They're just friendly, smiley guard, but they need somebody with a radio who can act lickety-split. Fact. Let's pop on to our events and exhibitions. This is one that Steve sent me with photos from the event. So this is the Manchester Museum, and they are doing a decolonise trail, which you can access through the website. So if you're going to the Manchester Museum, check this out and do let me know what you think. The pictures that Steve sent looked amazing. So this is something you can do if you are in Manchester. Steve suggests that when going out and about, you should carry a sword. When I tell you, I at one time was carrying, I had a dagger at my waist, and some of the behavior, like, and sort of jokingly, some of the behavior was so bad that I did sort of half pull my dagger. I just sort of locked eyes, and they were like, "Oh, hello." But also, when I was going around with the quarterstaff, as a peasant, then I did also position myself in a fighting stance then too. Yeah, doesn't stop them. They get brave. Also, you want to be careful about showing them you've got a sword because they try and take it off you, which then becomes very scary and dangerous. The Yorkshire Museum is going to be putting on a new exhibition about chariots, treasure, and power. This is the secret of the Melonsby Hoard. So this is going to go on display from May 2026 after a fundraising campaign all through 2025. And you can see some pictures on there of the hoard. Now, where there is information about the accessibility of these sites, I've put that in as well. I couldn't find that for this exhibition, but the one before I could. Keep your eyes open, see what's happening, follow along. It's not, so this is what you see on the website currently. I think because it's a little bit far out. But if you do get a chance to go to this, do let me know what you think. If you're in Melbourne, then you have Rome, Empire, Power and People. This is an exhibition that is going on until the 31st of March. So you've got just over a month left. Tickets are, for adults, $28, £12. For kids, this is a member's child, member adult, and there's a concession of £24. Credits rate $24. So they've got statues, mosaics, frescoes, jewellery, everyday objects, an exploration of Rome's political and cultural and social life. Looks amazing. A bit far away from me. Do let me know what you think. It looks brilliant. Stuart, it was not a bollock dagger. It had larger quillions than that, but they are also pretty cool. A hat pin would be great too. And Elizabeth, yeah, you're completely right. So different, and also like if there's a language barrier and somebody wants you to take a picture, and they might grab your arm and lead you, which it's not something that we necessarily love happening to us. But if there's a language barrier, you can give grace. But these are not situations where it was a language barrier. This is not what's happening there. I mean, also something to bear in mind is that in these pictures, if it's quite normal if you're taking a picture of somebody to try and put your arm around them, and it might seem like we're being really rude. And we're like, nope, 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 nope. But a few things to consider, like particularly if you are in a Tudor woman in Tudor gown, maybe you're in a French gown and you've got a Tudor hood on. Something to remember is that hood is being held on by a long, straight, sharp pin and a prayer, pretty much. But the front of your gown is pinned in place with uncapped straight pins. So if you put your arm around me and you touch me on my torso and you prick your finger and you bleed onto my silk velvet, I am in so much trouble. This is the definition of more than dry clean only. That is a garment being deconstructed and then reconstructed again. So it's that kind of, there are, as well as not particularly wanting to be touched, there's also the fact that the clothes we're wearing are covered in tiny little sharps all over the place. Stuart, a rondel dagger would also be spectacular, because then your victims on their knees, ready for the finality of it. Last, by no means least, it's not an event or an exhibition. It's a gaming thing. I could probably have put that better, but I don't know. So I think this is where you find it. And I think through this, you purchase it for PC and console. Question mark. I believe Windows, Microsoft, don't know. Either way, this is a game called Relooted, and it's got incredible reviews. This is where you go around Western museums reclaiming real African artifacts, and you can recruit new members, get escape routes, get the cargo, and get out of there as quickly as you can. People are really loving this game. I have no idea how to play video games. So if anybody has a good time doing this, let us know. I've watched the gameplay footage and it looks really cool. So yeah, Relooted is available to purchase, and there are various places that have discounts on it, so you can get it on wherever you play your games, I suppose. Fluffy Monkey, thank you so much for the super chat, and I'm glad I have so much fun doing them, and it's great to talk to you all and to chat about all these things and to get angry and to have a laugh and all the rest of it. It is the highlight of my month, so thank you so much. Jessie, yes, this is the Steam page for it. So Steam is the gaming publisher and it's for Windows PC. It's also though on a console. PlayStation? Mega Drive? Not a Mega Drive. That's old, isn't it? That's really old, a Mega Drive. It's one of those ones with this. It's got one of those. Two hands. Click, click, click. Oh my gosh, PlayStation is a console. I think it's on PlayStation as well. I think so. I could be wrong. Clearly, I'm doing this to designate it's a console, and I referred to it as a Mega Drive, which I'm aware is a Sega thing from when I was a kid. I don't think they still have those. I am so sorry. I don't know. I don't know anything about this, but this game looks amazing. So let me know what you think of it if you get a chance to play it. And we've got people talking about the Kathleen. So it's $13.49 on Steam. Sounds like a fun way to spend some time. How long does it take to play through a game? Is this one of those? Ah, Jessie, yes. Well, those would be controllers, and you can use them on PC as well. Good. Okay. You know when you have like a lot of knowledge about one area, and it just means that there are entire black holes in other cultural landscapes. And gaming is just one of those places for me. Like, I play games on my phone, and I get that, but literally everything else. I had a Wii, Nintendo, not toilet, and that was quite fun. I quite like the bowling and the tennis. Oh, okay. There we go. Thank you, Donald. It's on Xbox, not PlayStation. I forgot there was another one. Xbox is Microsoft as well. Okay, there we go. 13.49 GB pounds. So Xbox and PC. We got there in the end, friends. I apologise. I'm going to stop talking about video games now because I've made myself look old and a fool. So I'm going to park it. Also, my voice is suffering. I've had a cough for the last week, and it's I'm having trouble clearing it because I'm tired because the children don't sleep, and we've been here for 3 hours. Elizabeth does point out that it's got a free demo, the game. So spectacular. Thank you, friends, for joining this live stream. Thank you if you watched it live, if you're watching on the replay, thank you all so much. It has been so great to talk to you about all of the things that have been going on in the history news and have a good old giggle. And do please keep sending me your articles for next month's one. I hope you're going to have a wonderful rest of your February, wherever you are. And I look forward to speaking to you all in Friday's video, which, as I mentioned towards the top of the stream, the video that I'm going to be putting together and editing for Friday is on the history of royal arrests, I think, for potentially obvious reasons. So I hope that you will be in the premiere for that and we can have a chat. So until Friday, I hope you're going to have a great rest of your week. I hope you're going to have lovely weather. If you are in New York, where it's snowed in, stay safe, stay warm, stay well fed and hydrated. And until next time, friends, do take care of yourselves. Remember to click all the things, the interaction, all the ways, comment, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. Head over to the website, try and sign up for the mailing list. And also, if you put me as a trusted sender, because apparently it's telling you that my emails are trying to phish you. They're not. I'm not doing that. So if you can maybe add me as a trusted sender, it might not hide me from you. So until Friday, do take care of yourselves and have a brilliant time. But for now, it's going to be bye-bye from me. Bye.